Peter.
Brother, another Tuesday night. We are at the tavern.
Another night at the tavern. So, hey, welcome everybody. Tommy Joyce and Pete Forcelli at the Ten-Four Tavern. We got a great guest tonight. We'll get into Mike in a minute. It's 7:05 Eastern Standard Time, February 24th, year of our Lord, 2026. And we are hot off of the U.S. men's gold medal game and Olympic appearance. So we're definitely going to talk about that for a couple of minutes at the beginning before we get into it, because as a hockey guy, the greatest sports moment in U.S. history, in my opinion, was 1980 because of the upset, Cold War, and then the bunch of kids who were amateurs compared to the CCP, USSR Russian team were professionals for all intents and purposes back then, and it was the greatest thing. And this was awesome. I'm a New York Islanders fan, so I got 4 Stanley Cups right after that. And Ken Morrow, for any hockey fans out there, won a Stanley Cup, and then 3 months later he's on the Islanders. He won the gold medal, and then 3 months later he's on the Islanders, and then won a Stanley Cup. So that was pretty exciting. So we are definitely going to talk about this real quick. But hey, Mike Fanning, a good friend back in the transit police, back in the 80s, the United States Transit Police, not just the New York Transit Police. So welcome to the podcast, Ten-Four Tavern. Welcome to the tavern.
Hey, Mike. Happy to be here.
Yep. So before we get into anything else, anything we got to do before we do a little hockey? We're going to do a little bit of hockey. We'll see the goal. We'll do the national anthem because we are Patriots. And then we'll talk about a couple other things. Then we'll get into Mike's career and what's going on. Anything urgent before we get into it?
No, man, just USA, baby. USA.
All right, so let me do this. It is the tavern, right? So welcome Mike Fanning, as we talked about, Chief of Police, Pawleys Island, South Carolina. So from the big city to the beach. So we're going to talk about what it was like growing up in New York. Your father was a fireman, and we'll talk about all of that and your history there. We'll talk about growing up and then becoming a police officer, transit cop, and then merger, and then what it's like to transition from all of that 9/11 responder, and then going down to Pawleys Island, South Carolina, where I think I might have said to you once, I think you might have more jet skis than cops. Is that true?
That is not true.
All right. Well, I was hoping.
But not close with no cigar.
But it is the tavern. So, Pete, you got a tequila tonight? What do you got?
I do have Espolón Reposado. My old standby. It's cheap but effective.
Yep. And then, Mike, you're drinking Sambuca on the rocks. That was a little curveball for me. I haven't seen that one in a while.
I was going to go Bailey's, but I ran out.
Yeah. So I am pouring the Responder Bourbon from last week, Chief Kevin Barrett from Terre Haute, Indiana. And I figured, you know what? It's still up here. I got the bottle. I cracked it open last week. And so cheers, everybody. If you want to put in the chat, feel free to do so what you're drinking tonight. It is the tavern, but we do encourage responsible drinking. Nobody should ever drink and drive. Nobody should be getting into a car and getting behind the wheel. We have a thing called Uber. It's brand new. You might not have all have ever heard of it, but it's pretty cool. And they will pick you up ordering a car from an app, and they'll come and pick you up and drive you home. And the next day you go back and get your car. So there's really no excuse. I'm going to hit the chat a little bit right now, and I'm really not great at it. However, there is one here that I want to address. Mike Fanning is one of the finest individuals I met while on the job in retirement. He has become an ambassador and a welcome agent for the NYPD in South Carolina. He is the David Hasselhoff of Pawleys minus the Speedos. Patrick Donahue.
Thank you, Patty.
Good friend of the podcast, by the way, the Finest Unfiltered Family. So Patrick Donahue, 2960. Thanks for that. Really appreciate it. And then 92 Charlie, too bad we're not live from Pawleys Island Tavern, the Pit, Great Dive Bar in Pawleys.
Amen.
So, all right. So I'm getting to make sure. Maybe we don't play a goal tonight. We might get a copyright infringement. So, geez, Louise, you know, this is all news, but I know how to do this. I'm going to play.
Let's do it. Just do it.
I don't want to get pushed down in the algorithm. So out of respect for you, Mike, and your show, because we want to make sure we get that it's pushed up in the algorithm, let's just all acknowledge the USA in the chats and everything, the gold medal, and then I want to talk about the press conference real quick. So these kids, these hockey kids, are at the press conference after they won the gold medal, and they're literally, the Italians are bringing them Coronas, and they're drinking beers while wearing ski masks, ski goggles, and then there's a whole bunch of pictures of them calling for more beers, and they're just bringing endless amounts and gobs of Coronas. And Pete, I think you know a little bit about Canadians, so you want to comment on the fact that they were drinking beers at the press conference?
No, man, the Canadians can drink, brother. Like I said, I'm surprised my liver survived that 2-year assignment up there. So I'm sure they were quite jealous. Although I think if the Canadians won, they would have been slamming Molson's, which smells like skunk piss.
Or who said?
Yeah.
So I just want to acknowledge I moved here from Long Beach almost 20 years ago, and Charlie McAvoy had played hockey with a few of my parents, friends of ours and kids now. So I just want to congratulate the McAvoy family. It's an outstanding achievement.
So good. And then Pete and I are going to the Golden Knights, Vegas Golden Knights. Tom Monahan, previous guest on the Ten-Four Tavern, head of security for the Golden Knights. His team is coming into town. On Friday, we're going to go pick up the Caps game. Jack Eicher and Noah Hannafin from the Golden Knights, Olympic champions, gold medal winners. So we're going to go see them on Friday at the Cap One Arena. So go USA hockey. Really looking forward to it. Really appreciate it. And man, hockey, kid sitting there with his teeth knocked out, still plays the game, gets on there, goes to the podcast. Goes to the press conference, and then just banging back beers. Talk about hockey, man. So really good stuff.
Hey, you know what? More importantly, though, is they were, not all the athletes, but they were loudest us about their support for their country. We had some of these other people like kind of apologizing for representing the United States. Those guys were proud, and I'm proud of them.
Yeah, so they were invited to the White House. They were in the Oval Office today. The team was. They took some pictures. And then I believe they might be at the State of the Union tonight. I'm not 100% sure of that. However, the women's team was invited. They noted that they had previous professional and academic responsibilities, so therefore they couldn't go to the White House. I'm going to be honest with you. That's disappointing to me, and I'll tell you exactly why I feel, and then I'll defer to you guys. I wasn't a big fan of all of our presidents. I like some more than others. I don't care who it was. I don't care which president it was. If I won a gold medal for the United States of America, and I was invited to the White House by a president of the United States, whether I agreed or disagree with him, I show up out of respect for the office and respect out of the position and of respect for our country. And there's no excuse not to show up, in my opinion. And to say you have a professional responsibility or an academic responsibility, then nothing more important than the country. Well, God, then country, then family. And so if God was calling, I would say, sorry, Mr. President, I can't make it. Or Madam President, I can't make it. But I'm going, so I don't know what you guys think. So
I agree word for word with you there. The exact order too. God, country, family, friends. But now it's sad. It's disappointing. I think it's a bullshit excuse, personally.
Yeah.
I'd agree with you guys also. But then to add on top of that is, if you're clamoring for respect, when people in women's sports are looking to be acknowledged as equals to the men, this is the perfect opportunity to do that. And you've just, lambasted your sport by doing that and your peers.
Yeah. What did I say?
And I would even say, you know what? Go there and tell them how you feel. If you don't like them, tell them how you feel. The guy's going to listen to you. Anyone who's paid attention to Donald Trump, love him or hate him, the guy talks to everybody. And he'll sit and listen to you. And he may or may not agree. And then the idea that they said when he called, his phone call was, hey guys, congratulations, welcome to Gold Medal. You know I'm going to have to invite the women. And if I don't invite them, they're going to impeach me. And they've made such a big deal. That is such a joke that he was making a joke about the impeachment. Not that he had to invite the women because they won and he didn't want to invite the women. He was making the joke, in my opinion, that that they would impeach him because they'll impeach him for anything they can. And so it's just the political games just need to stop, and the rhetoric needs to stop. You don't have to agree with the guy. I didn't agree with a lot of previous presidents, some more than others, some less than others. I would still have gone no matter what, under any circumstances. So with that, any final thoughts on the hockey? God bless America. Way to go, USA.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. So Ron and Rob and Eric, John, and Marlon will talk about the snowball incidents in Washington Square Park over the last couple of days with the snowstorm. They'll dig into it. They'll break it down. They'll break down the mayor's response. They'll break down the police department's response. They'll break down what may or may not have and should have been done. I'm just going to start off by saying it's massively disappointing, not only for the NYPD, our beloved NYPD, which includes the original, because we do have housing, police department, Pete Forcelli, and we got transit. Me and Mike were original transit OPDs. So all of that same New York City policing, our beloved policing, it's disappointing, but I believe this is a national scale issue, where you have police officers being assaulted, and they are being assaulted with a weapon. Don't tell me an ice-packed snowball cannot administer an injury. Of course it can. I've been hit in the face with snowballs. I know exactly what can happen. They were assaulted and nobody was arrested at the scene last I saw. This is very disappointing. This goes back to the water, the water pistols, and then the buckets of water. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm disappointed, and I want to see a stronger response from the police department and the city moving forward.
Tommy, when I came out of the academy and went into field training, one of my FTOs was a big black guy named Rudy Edwards. Rudy had 40 years on the job, and he was still a patrolman. He got a detective specialist shield shortly after that. And he told me, look, man, you're a skinny little white kid. At the time, I weighed like 130 pounds. He said, guys are going to come and get in your face, and they're going to test you. And if you don't take your baton and set an example right away, everyone will come and fuck with you. So he was right, man. The first guy that got in my grill, I had to do what I had to do. You set a tone, like, hey, man. And even more importantly, Rudy said, because if you're willing to let them get and be disrespectful to you, then they're going to feel free to do it to the next cop. So, I mean, that was how we handled business back in the day. And then there was disorderly conduct summons, but we weren't afraid to use a baton. We didn't even have tasers back then. We had pepper spray. Nobody used it because you wound up wearing more of it sometimes than the perp. But just tolerating violence against your colleagues or yourself is intolerable. And Mandami, I tell you what, man, what I respect about him is that you knew exactly what you were getting when he ran for elected office. He told you he was a piece of trash, and he's proving that that's the case. But look, I mean, Mike, you mentioned it before we went on camera. Bragg's not going to prosecute these people anyway. And that's a thing that didn't exist in our day. There was no such thing as woke prosecutors in our day. And so, I mean, I feel bad for the cops of today. It's not an easy job. But, man, it would have been nice to see a cop take out a baton and hit one of those guys right in the solar plexus and drop them to their knees and set the tone instead of just turning the other cheek and letting snowballs continue to hit him in the back of the head. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Very frustrating to watch these things. It's hard to imagine, not policing with a nightstick these days. I carried it every day on patrol. I never had it in my holder, and I had it in my hands, and people knew when you were ready to use it. And to see, what do you have, 50, 60 people at least throwing snowballs at you, and then you had another dozen or so with cameras in your face waiting for you to respond. So that's the trap. And unfortunately, these guys had to walk away with their tails between their legs.
One day we would have went home with tennis elbow. What say?
Yeah, so we'll finish up a last comment because Lily asked Marlon to explain his comment it's a reflection of the increasing incivility and nihilism of young people. And she asked, what does he mean by nihilism? These kids, they don't think they have a future, and they think everything is doomsday, and therefore they have nothing to lose. So they're doing and participating in risky behavior. And it's a much deeper conversation than that. I think we do have mental health issues with the kids today, and they don't think they have a future, which is to play the victim. It would be really sad. If I was a parent today, which I am, but my kids are older, but I do have a younger one, I tell him he can be anything he wants to be, and he can work really hard and just really knock it out of the park. Because even if you're not the smartest guy in the room or the smartest gal in the room, you can work hard and show an ethic and respect and look at your future, and then know that you can have a partner and make a life with and really be fulfilled and just knock it out of the park. Because all of these kids, I believe, like when they say the greatest generation, and I'm the product of a child of the greatest generation, but I think us as parents have been the worst parents, quite frankly, because we're the ones that are raising the kids that are going through this. So thanks, Marlon. Spot on. We see it the same way. And these kids need to be told that they can do whatever they want to do, and there is beautiful things that can happen in life. And not to play the victim. So,
well, Tommy, let's look at what's happening right now in Mexico. Right, you have groups of armed men who have been allowed to run amok unchecked for a long time. They didn't start out riding around in marked vehicles in uniforms. They became emboldened because they got away with things again and again and again and again. Very extreme example, but do you think that if we just tolerate violence here, that you're not going to have groups that feel emboldened to just grow and become more and more and more bold and more violent? I mean, I hope we never get there. But I mean, if Mexico crushed the cartels or held people accountable down there, they wouldn't be in the situation they're in. I just hope we never get to anything like that up here. But with these people who coddle criminals, marginalize victims, and demonize cops, it's entirely possible at some point.
Yep. All right, well, I'm guessing life in Pawleys Island, South Carolina is pretty darn good, Mike. So let's pivot and get into
27 inches of snow.
So let's start backwards a little bit. Why don't you tell everyone about Pawleys Island right now and how you got there, and then we'll go backwards.
Sure.
And then we'll go back. So because, I mean, I know a lot of people don't even know where it is. Like, I live in Charlottesville, Virginia right now. The Unite the Right rally and good people on both sides, Trump's comments, and people still don't even know. So there's a lot of places, a lot of cities that folks don't even know. So why don't you start there? Tell us where it is, what it's like, how you got there, and then we'll go back to the New York career, because really some cool stuff back in New York. So we'll get to that later.
Sure. So Pawleys Island area, the zip code, is about 25 miles south of Myrtle Beach Airport, and we're actually 72 miles north of Charleston, and maybe 60 miles north of Mount Pleasant. So those are the major hubs on the coastal South Carolina region. The town of Pawleys Island itself, though, it's just a stretch. It's actually a barrier island. It's kind of like Fire Island. It's 4 miles long. It's at the widest point, and maybe a quarter of a mile wide. So surrounded by water. It's actually an island, and we get the hurricanes, we get the king tides, and all that stuff. And I try to explain people about the architecture and the people that live there. Architecture-wise, I would say it's a cross between the Hamptons, maybe Fire Island and Breezy Point. The people that we only have 125 full-time residents, but it bounces up to about 5,000 during the summer months. Right. So, but it's high end. I mean, the houses are all, if it's touching the water, it's $2 million or $2 million to $4.5 million. And then the people that come there, they're spending $15,000 to $35,000 a week, depending on the size of the house and the location of the house, to rent it. So we're not getting the dregs of society there for sure. But like anywhere else, we do get our car break-ins. We get some burglaries during the winter. When people come in, we'll get our domestic disputes and some drunk and disorderly from time to time. but it's few and far between. I think, if we have 15 arrests a year, it's that might be the max. Probably averages about 10 maybe. So we're not a high crime area. I kind of tell people it's concierge policing.
Sure.
People will call the town hall and they say, hey, there's a party next door, or somebody's parked in my driveway and shouldn't be. And we address it and we correct conditions. And I tell my guys too, if you're driving down the road and you see someone who might be elderly and they got groceries, they're lugging up to their house, hop out and help them bring the groceries in. So and they respect that, and they treat us well there. I have a good town council, good mayor, supports the police, town administrator too. So I cannot complain. So I arrived in Pawleys Island in 2006 when I retired. I was not looking to go back into policing at the time. I actually worked as a photographer up in Myrtle Beach at some theater up there. And I found it because when I was on the hostage negotiations team, two guys from Georgetown County, the county we're in, came up for the training. I became friends with one of them. We came down to visit him a couple of times. The bagpipe band I was in at the time, we used to play in Myrtle Beach at the South Carolina Firefighters conference. And, we would just kind of cruise around. My wife and I were looking for someplace to go. We considered Virginia Beach. We considered Delaware. And they still got a little bit too much more winter than I would like. So this is it's been a good fit. We still get 4 seasons, but the winter is much shorter and usually a little bit milder. We get about 10 to 15 days out of the year where it doesn't reach 50 degrees, although this year has been a little brutal. But it seems to be brutal everywhere, so I cannot complain. And
this whole global warming thing, so
yeah. So the schools were good. We moved here. My daughter was just 6, and my stepson was 13, going to high school. And the timing just met our needs at the moment. And so this deputy from Georgetown County that I was friends with, Jeff Benton, he was offered a job with the Pawleys Island Police Department as a police officer, but he was in the process of going up to Horry County and transferring up there, and he had a pass on it. But he recommended me to the position, to the chief, and I interviewed. There was like 60 applicants. They narrowed it down to 5, and I ultimately selected. Just a quick story on, he put together like a hiring board, and there was 2 guys that he'd worked with. Actually, one guy he'd worked with in Horry County Police Department previously. The other fellow was from Berkeley County, and they were both the chief and the assistant chief of the Santee Cooper Public Service Authority, which is the electric and electric grid around here. So they had their own police department. They gave us the interview. The sergeant from Pawleys Island was there. He was retired from Detroit, and I think I knocked it out of the park. And I kind of thought the interview was over, and I was talking and I dropped the F-bomb. and the 2 guys, looked at each other and they said, "Okay, thank you." And I left the room, and they were like, "Did you hear what he just said?" And the guy from Detroit's like, "Hey, we're not hiring a Boy Scout. We're hiring a cop." So
yeah.
Let me ask you this: you ever run into a guy, Pete Sestair from Horry County, by any chance?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the president of the Myrtle Beach 1013, and Pete is my vice president.
I was there at Need More Projects tonight. He got shot in the face. That dude is a hero.
Absolutely, Medal of Honor winner.
Yeah,
the utmost.
Yeah. Wow. Small world.
Yeah, absolutely. So Pete retired a couple of years ago as a lieutenant in the Horry County Police Department. He was in charge of their crime scene unit and forensics unit. So, the guys that from New York that come here, they if you can acclimate to the weather and the political climate and the slowness of things, and just to be able to speak with people well, guys from New York will do well here. And I know there's a lot of guys out there looking for places to go. All the agencies around here, except for mine, are hiring. So, you got to push a radio car around a little bit before you can move into an investigative position or something else. But Myrtle Beach PD, they're part of a federal task force. They have, and they get busy. If you're looking to work, they still get busy down there in the downtown Myrtle Beach area. I know a lot of people speak a lot of crap about Myrtle Beach, but it's just a small area that has those issues. The greater Myrtle Beach area is still really nice, and there's COVID pushed a lot of people from the north down here. So you're not going to see too many people with southern drawls down here in Myrtle Beach area. The county I live in, once you go off the beaches, we still have a lot of fine southern gentlemen and women out there. And I enjoy speaking with them and hearing their stories and how they grew up here, and how it's changing, good, bad, and, whatever it might be, their outlook on it. But I know a lot of people are like, oh, do you feel like guys are still fighting the Civil War down there? Not so much anymore. You might run into, I don't even know people that would say that to my face. They may say it behind my back. But you do see it on the keyboard warriors on Facebook and stuff like that. They'll, oh, you damn Yankees, but.
And they call it the War of Northern Aggression.
Yeah.
One of my buddies moved down to South Carolina, and he said that he said he thought he might have made the wrong choice when he saw the bumper sticker on the car within a day, and it said, "We don't care how you guys do it up north," or something like that.
You know what? Look, I know some NYPD guys here who started policing down here, and when I went to the police academy here, they basically told me, they sugarcoated it a bit, but said, basically, we don't care how you did it at NYPD. Yeah. This is how we do it here. And if you can't adjust to it, then have a nice life. So,
yeah. Well, I'm not quite as south as you. And when I moved to Charlottesville, I was sitting in a vineyard with my wife, and there's these girls and they're partying, and then there's this old timer hanging out there, and he's just taking care of the girls because it was a bridal party or something, and they were just having fun. And he was their Uber driver, clearly probably one of the girls' fathers, and he's just watching, and I'm watching him because New York City cop, just watching everybody and being situationally aware. He finally looks at me, and we give the nod to each other, and he's like, "You from up north?" Because he heard us talking, and I go, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Where from?" And I go, "New York." And he goes, "Yeah. You know what the difference is between a Yankee and a damn Yankee is?" I said, "No, sir, I do not." And he goes, "Damn Yankees stay."
That's right.
I was like, "All right." I turned to Susan. I go, "Did we make the wrong decision here?" It's been wonderful. It's been great. I love the South. It's very different. There's no place that's like it was. Everybody is getting infiltrated by somebody from somewhere else, especially if you have a university, especially if you have a hospital, especially if you have medical. I mean, we have the university and the medical here, and everybody's from everywhere, and not even just across the country, across the world. I've met people from Sweden and Europe and Asia, and we've got people from all over the country. And it attracts talent from all over the world, and that's the new world. That's the new world. And I miss New York, and I miss Brooklyn terribly. The enclaves of just like the generation after generation. It's not where we're at now. So anyway,
you know what South Carolina has that we don't have in Virginia, Tommy? You know what that is, right?
Me.
Last year, besides that, which is a big thing, they were rated the happiest state in the union last year.
Oh, are they?
Yes, they were the happiest.
Well, that's because they have a police chief in Pawleys Island who's telling their guys to help the old lady with the groceries. So let me bring up a picture from Pawleys. So mandatory evacuations and alligators. What's that, man?
So my first 10 years, probably there, 12 years, we didn't really have any threats of any severe hurricanes. And then all of a sudden we had Hurricane Matthew and several tropical storms, and then Hurricane Ian, Hurricane Dorian, and we wound up having to do evacuations. And Matthew was in 2016, I believe, and we had people who were not going to evacuate. And even though there's no such thing as a mandatory evacuation, I can't force you out of your house. I had the guys go to these guys' houses and say, "Look, you need to sign a waiver that we told you, we warned you, and you give us, you your next of kin and your social security number, and we'll come looking for you afterwards. And it was a bit of a scare tactic, but I did have a couple of the people that signed those that said we should have left. That was the scariest thing we've ever been through. Yeah. So, and these people lived, they lived on the beach, and when you see that water coming up underneath your house, you might second guess your decision, but it all worked out. I mean, we had a lot of damage during Hurricane Matthew. We didn't have, right now we have all our wires are underground, so we had a lot of poles and live wires down. We had a lot of sand on the roads. Took a long time to get cleared out. And we didn't lose any. Well, Hurricane Matthew, we lost 2 houses to fire. But it's life. It's life at the beach, and people realize that. The biggest part of being the police department in the island during a storm, especially the people who live there full time, you're leaving your house, so they want to know exactly as soon as the last raindrops, they want to know, how's my house? When can I get back on? And that's the hardest part of managing an evacuation is, we have to wait for the emergency management division and the governor to approve, returning. We had National Guard for checkpoints, and it was, it gets a little stressful, but we managed through it. The picture on the right, we do get a couple of times a year an alligator that comes up on the beach. Now, alligators are freshwater creatures, and they're really, usually not in the ocean. Sometimes they'll get washed out. They'll come out looking for food, and they'll get washed out with the tides, or they'll get sick, and I guess they have an instinct to go in the salt water, and they'll go die in the ocean. This one happened to be pretty sick, and we kept chasing him away, hoping he would go back onto the mainland. But it was July 3rd, so it was the night before the 4th of July, and we have all these tourists there. And of course, it was at the point where we had to do something. So we had this dog noose, and I went out there and had one of the guys threw a towel over his face, and the guy in the white shirt behind me is Dennis Broderick. He was a detective in the 104 precinct and Queen Homicide. So he worked for me part-time for a while, and that was his buddy next to him, and they helped me evacuate the alligator from the beach. Alligators are like fur-bearing creatures. They cannot be relocated. So if they wind up out of their element, they have to be destroyed. So we had to euthanize him.
Michael, listen to you knowing all about the animals and being relocated. I moved down here and I relocated a box turtle, and I said that to some. I thought, because I took it off the road because I didn't want to run it over, and I just brought it over and I transferred, and they destroyed me. I was like, I'm a New York City kid. What do I know? I thought I was doing the right thing. So now I take the turtles and I put them on the side of the road. Look at you.
It was a big learning curve for me. The only alligator I saw was in the subway.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we there's a lot of creatures in the subway. But hey, so a couple of things. I met Chief Fanning in Pawleys Island a few years ago, gentlemen. So you're getting a lot of love tonight, Mike. So for those guys who are out here,
we get a lot of to stop in, just to say hello, looking for a patch or challenge coin or something like that. So, it's a big tourist destination, and everybody's super nice. I can't say anything bad about who we encounter on a daily basis. You're always gonna have the one or two knuckleheads that kind of wander on, but as they say in Hollywood, it's the usual suspects.
Yeah. And you have a pretty good 1013, and you said you were running an M. And I see, we're in the same circle. So you draw a lot of the old transit guys down there from time to time.
We have a lot, yeah, quite a few. Hank Betts, I don't remember him from Security.
You guy, right?
Yep. He's been down here about as long as I have, maybe a little longer. But we got a ton of guys down here. Danny Curtin, Chet Levy, Bill McMillan. A lot of the pipe band guys moved down. And like I said before, they used to come down to perform St. Patrick's Day parades, and when we got tired of New York, or New York got tired of us, I guess. That we would travel. We went to San Antonio, and Savannah a bunch of times. If anybody wants to go see a good time down in St. Patrick's Day, go to Savannah. Great parade, great people.
So 2 things on that. Number 1, I remember you telling me probably 25 years ago that Savannah was the 3rd largest St. Patrick's Day parade. So you told me that. You're the person who educated me on that. And then fast forward to Jen Armstrong being on the podcast, I think episode 7 or 8, Pete, who's from Savannah, U.S. Marshal, who was on our podcast. And we were like, hey, what the hell's going on in Savannah? How'd you guys pull that off, man? How does that happen? And then everyone, so Mike, later on, you played a snare, right?
I play the snare drum, yes.
Yep, in the pipe band. So
actually, when I was like in the 2nd grade, I lived in the Bronx at the time. Our Lady of Refuge parish started up a fife and drum corps, and I was a charter member in the 2nd grade and learned how to play the snare drum. And then when I went to move to Rockaway, I was part of St. Camillus band, and then we used to travel to the Orange Bowl and Holyoke, Massachusetts, and all these places to play, and I just enjoyed it. So when I became a cop and they were looking for guys for the pipe band, I jumped right in.
So you want to talk about parallel? I went to Our Lady of Refuge in Brooklyn on Ocean Avenue. So
did you?
There you go. Anyway, so Pete, anything on Pawleys, and then we're gonna. I don't think.
No, I've never been to Pawleys, but my son was assigned to the U.S. Coast Guard for 4 years in Savannah. So I've been to the St. Patrick's Day. It's a great town. Plus, when I went through the academy, the ATF Academy is only about an hour and a half south. So there's not much happening in Brunswick, Georgia.
Yeah.
If you wanted to have some fun, you either drove south to Jacksonville or you drove north to Savannah. I mean, St. Simon's Island's not bad, but it's not exactly jumping. No, I love that part of the country, man. Are you in the part that's still considered the low country, Mike? Is that still considered low country down there or no?
It's really, well, I guess kind of, but it's more considered like the PD region, even though the PD region is, in my mind, is more towards like the I-95 corridor. But Charleston is considered the low country, and we're just above that. So it's like a mix.
You ever have a low country boil?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's something else.
They actually, we do a Chiefs meeting for Horry and Georgetown County. It's actually known as the 15th Judicial Circuit. And once a month we do a gathering and intel and networking. And somebody recently had a low country boil every month a different department hosts it. So they had a low country boil. So I love it.
Yeah. Oh, something else.
No, that's good stuff. We used to do a crab boil when I was in my other neighborhood. We did one for 7 or 8 years. We did a Maryland Chesapeake type crab boil. I mean, those things are the best. And then my wife is originally from Maine, so lobster boils. I mean, that's some good stuff right there. So VR Forever, super sticker, $10. Thank you for the podcast. Really appreciate that. Please, everybody, like, subscribe, and share. Smash that like button. And then if you pay attention, everybody. If you hit the like button, it might activate a hype button. Is a new feature in YouTube because they want to see how much are you just hitting the like button, or are you really liking the like, and then you hype it, and then you hit hype and all this other stuff. And not every video is getting hyped. Not every platform. I think they're doing it for the smaller platforms, and in this case, although the New York's Finest Unfiltered is growing, it's up to 120K and change. I think it's 122. It was only 60,000 about 5 or 6 months ago, so we've doubled in 6 months. So thanks to everybody who listens and subscribe to the Finest Unfiltered. But like, share, and subscribe, and if it activates, hit the hype button, please. So Mike, let's go to 19. Well, let's go. Like, you grew up in the Bronx, and then you guys in Rockaway. I know your dad was a fireman, but how did you become a cop? Did you want to be a fireman? Like, walk us through growing up and then coming on the job.
So my dad was actually a transit cop for 2 years. He worked in District 5.
Okay.
Yep. District 5 at the time was Grand Central, where you had to go down the catwalk into this little command, apparently, from what I heard. And he always wanted to be a fireman. He was a big fire buff growing up. He lived a couple blocks. He lived in Yorkville, so he grew up a couple of blocks away from the firehouse, and used to buff there and stuff. And the opportunity came where he was able to switch over, and he loved it. He was just all about the fire department. He never forgot his transit police roots. He was very good friends with Patty Townsend and Don Tisdale. And when we came on the transit police, those guys kind of steered me and helped me.
Us, all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Buddy Madden, every time I used to see him, he's like, "Your father owes me a pair of handcuffs," So Inspector Madden, so he was a good man, and the amount of people that we ran into on the transit police, that they were just solid people, and I missed them a lot. So he became a fireman. He worked in the Bronx when we lived in the Bronx, and we moved to Rockaway. He got promoted to lieutenant, and he actually went to lieutenant over the Junction. He worked over there in 255 engine, and became a captain. I think he went down to Dean Street over by the 7A precinct. Then he became a battalion chief. At the time when he was a battalion chief in the 44th Battalion, which was in Brownsville, St. Patrick's Day. It was the St. Patrick's Day, right? I guess the one right before the merge, I think.
In a hostile takeover.
The hostile takeover. So when I was in the 7-3 as a sergeant, I would stop in there and say hello whenever he was working, and we're sitting there at the kitchen table, and 1013 comes over the radio. Guys from crime were chasing a guy with a gun over some rooftops, and I go bucking out of there, and I found out a week later that my dad put in for a transfer. He's like, "Can't do it." He says, "I don't want to respond to you or one of your guys getting hurt and stuff like that." And he wound up going over to middle central Brooklyn, really, Prospect Park area, with a little more quiet. And I guess he was waiting to get promoted to deputy chief, which he did. And he retired. He worked in Midtown Manhattan in Division 3 as a deputy chief. So I know I could have gone on the fire department and been taken care of very well. I took the test. Did you ever take the test, Tommy?
I did not.
No, you, Pete, no.
I'm afraid of heights, man. They'd have to rescue me from the ladder. Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember that one test they gave in the late 80s where guys were like getting so super sick. A couple of them died during the physical, renal failure and that type of thing. It was like so stressful. I took it. I didn't do great. I don't know if I was going to get called or not, but I was on the sergeant's list at that point, or hoping to be on the sergeant's list. I don't know if you want to talk about the test that was thrown out, Tommy, but.
Oh, I would love to talk about the test that was thrown out, but I have to do something because the chat is part of the show. Love them or hate them, they are part of the show. So at Menudo, before you, Joyce is getting that deer in the headlights Cash Patel look. Boring. So Menudo, I'm producing this show at the same time while listening. I've got a lot of stuff. I got some pictures going on. I know Mike's career is stellar. I'm looking at the notes that I have for the show. We're going to hear some really cool stuff. So I'm sorry that you thought that I was zoning out. Mike Fanning's got a combat cross and a Medal of Valor, and he's done some hostage negotiation shit. I'll take Mike's career over a lot of people in his career. So stay tuned, people. We got some good stuff coming up. So thanks, Menudo. Really appreciate it. Maybe you should listen and learn how to be a policeman, but whatever. It's all good. So yeah, we'll talk about the test let's get to the test when you go sergeant. So you get on the job and you go to TPF and then District 1. So did you want to go to District 1? Did that just happen? Or?
I did. Yeah, I did. I was always told growing up, District 1, Donnie Tisdale was like my Irish uncle, and that's where he always worked in his career. And growing up, that's all you heard: Times Square, District 1, Columbus Circle. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to remember today's the anniversary of Sammy Calabrese's homicide in Columbus Circle. I think it was 1972. He was shot by a fare evader. Guy jumped the turnstile. So, I know you want to touch on it later about the line of duty deaths. They all mean a lot to me. I just wanted to touch on that. But TPF in District 1, for those who don't know, you worked 8 at night till 4 in the morning. You rode trains across the whole city. Even though you worked out of Columbus Circle, I was in Coney Island one night, J Street the next, Bay Ridge the next, up in the Bronx, or Inwood, 205th Street, 207th Street the next day. God bless our heroes, right? It's a learning experience. I mean, you're by yourself. You have to know how to talk to people. You can't degrade them and get pushed into a corner or push somebody else in the corner because they're going to snap back at you. You had to know where if you were on an express train, you knew it was 10 minutes or 9 minutes from Columbus Circle to the next stop at 125th Street. So if you had somebody riding between the cars or smoking or whatever it was, you knew not to engage them until you were getting close to 125th Street, where you knew that was a 2-man post and you could have some help waiting for you. And those are the things. Even though I grew up in the Bronx and Rockaway, I wasn't a city kid. I mean, I was a city kid, but I was not an inner city kid. Back then in the Bronx, I did veer very far from where I lived in Kingsbridge. Craziest things I did back then was go to my father's firehouse to go pick up his paycheck. And I used to see how the other half lived. And riding through the trains throughout the whole city, you learned where you were and how to handle yourself pretty quickly. Otherwise, you're going to get your ass kicked. Yeah,
so I was at District 30 TPF, well, 33 and 30. And then it's funny because you know how it is, right? You get to 33, all your friends out of the academy go to 30. So you put in the mutual right away. And then it takes 2 months to get there. You realize no, I want to stay at 30. I don't care. Screw you guys. But then it's already in. So then you got to go. So I made that mistake. But anyway, the Rockaways, that 7-minute ride to Broad Channel and then the 12-minute ride to Rockaway, you need to know. And so, Pete, I'm going to defer to you. Mike and I are sharing these situationally aware, what the subway, what you need to look for in the hole, right? Share with the audience some tricks of the trade for the housing police, elevators, and getting off a floor and making sure the elevator doors don't close on you and shit like that.
Yeah, we didn't worry about the doors closing on us. What we didn't do is lean on the wall in the elevator because more likely than not, someone pissed on it earlier in the day. You also took great caution on the roof landings because you found people either shitting, shooting up, or fucking. So it was very interesting. We used to take the elevators up to the top and walk down. When I was younger, we would walk up and down, but that gets a little old when you're wearing a gun belt unless your hips get kind of shot. But no, man, our radios worked in the projects. We walked the beat and we were alone. When we called the 1013 or an 85 forklift, we got help rather quickly. You guys in the hole were at the mercy of a pretty shitty radio system. So us housing guys, and we always said it took balls to walk the holes, but us housing guys always had a lot of respect for our brothers and sisters in transit because you guys often were kind of left to your own devices, man, alone, without a working radio. So, but we had things we watched out for. Mostly piss shit and stuff coming off the roofs when you walk by. Something sometimes as small as a chicken bone or a AAA battery, but other times as large as the television. You kind of learn to look up a lot.
Yeah. So, Mike, Housing for Life, HFL, Solar Patrol radios that don't work, that's respect. As a District 30 guy, J Street Borough Hall on the A, C, and E, well, not the E, but the AC, our communications division at that time was 3 stories, right? So from the subway to the first, second story, our radios didn't work at J Street, and our communications division was literally 100 feet above our heads. So there's that, and then Patrick Donahue again. I did my field training with District 30, Hoyt and Skimmelhorn, Sergeant Gunther. You know who that is?
Yeah, I got promoted sergeant with him.
Charlie Gunther, good man, rest in peace. What a good guy, really good guy. So is that Charlie Gunther? Are we talking?
Oh no, that was Mike Gunther.
Oh, Mike Gunther. Okay. Oh, all right. Yep. All right. I know who I'm thinking of. Okay.
Probably.
Sorry. So
That's what they, yeah.
Okay. So you go through the academy. You're in District 1, and
I get stuck in CPF for like a year. I wanted to get off of it. It was awful. The hours were terrible. As a young guy, you don't want to be working 8 to 4 in the morning, and you wind up doing stupid things like drinking in Central Park or on the beach in Coney Island or Rockaway, and till the sun comes up. So I put in for a transfer, and the only place I could get to was District 3 up in Harlem. So I was traveling from Rockaway to 145th to St. Nick, and for a little while my car didn't work, so I was taking the A train every day all the way up there. But it was a great command. The guys were very tight. You know that with any busy house that you go to, the guys are always tight. They're always looking out for each other. You learn a lot. Just got to keep your mouth shut and just kind of watch to make sure you're doing things the right way. And there was a lot of solo posts, and there was a couple of 2-man patrol posts. So I had to learn. I was not always good with my hands. I was pretty good with the nightstick, but it doesn't always call for that. But so you learn how to talk to people, and you got. My motto was always try to treat people with respect. Look, I don't know what the circumstances were. You're homeless, or you can't afford your fare for the day, $1.15 or whatever it was at the time. You come up and ask me politely. We did crazy things back in the day when somebody came through and you'd be like, hey, name 5 states or something like that, and I'll let you through. And some of the answers we got were kind of crazy, but you had to make it fun. You were out there for a long time, and hey, do a little ballerina dance around the token booth, and you can go in. And guys would do it, and they could be on their way. So Tommy, not for me to judge. If I caught you sucking tokens out of the turnstile, and then you come up to me and say, hey, I need to get downtown. Well, beat it. So. I don't know.
The same experience for sure.
Yeah, I mean, how many 67s you did for criminal temp and that's petty larceny, right?
So Pete, when Mike just said name 5 states, you know what he's talking about?
Fuck yeah, Tommy. You know how many kids I met in the Bronx that thought Philadelphia was a state? We used to do the same thing, and we didn't even ask for 5. Give us 3: New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia. Okay, yeah. Right.
We used to get the kids from Brooklyn who thought the Bronx was a state. So.
So my favorite quiz to allow a kid to ride for free was, and I wish I had an original idea in my head, but I learned from somebody else, and right. I never spent enough time thinking about it. But the partner I was working with said to the kid, if you want to ride for free, tell me what's closer, Florida or the moon. And the kid said, the moon. And then my partner said, you idiot. Like, are you kidding me? The moon is X number of miles away, but Florida's only 2,000 miles away. And the guy goes, and the kid says, I don't know what you're talking about. I can see the moon, but I can't see Florida. And it's like, you know what? There's kind of logic to that.
Ghetto wisdom. That's right.
And it was so good. And we used to make them do push-ups and like, hey, kid, drop it, give me 20, you can ride. And we had such good times with those kids. And you could tell who the good kids were and who the kids were who were predatory. I really, really did have a good time with all of the stuff, the fare beating, the scam van. You remember scam van in transit and the test. Kenny Klein being the sergeants, right?
Kenny Klein. I was in the scam van, I think with Jay Kopp, actually, the day they announced that the test was thrown out on the radio, and everybody's pagers were blowing up and stuff. So I was on 125th Street by the 26th precinct, waiting for our next Stuff and Suck call.
Stuff and Suck. So a shout out to Kenny Klein, because Colleen listens and is it?
Hi, Colleen.
What's that?
I said hi, Colleen.
Yep. So if we can, I'm going to do clips, and if I can capture this moment with Kenny Klein, we will. Jay Kopp and Mickey McHale, all District 1 guys who went to the task force, were great supervisors. Really just miss every one of those guys. Jay's still alive, but Mickey and Kenny have passed on. So rest in peace, guys.
Were you on task force before they made a citywide task force?
I was Brooklyn, Queens, and then went to citywide task force. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that's a Bratton thing, which we can definitely talk about.
Yeah.
But I want to talk to you about, because since you mentioned it, so you took the test and you heard they threw it out, and we'll talk about why they threw it out in a second. How did you do on the first test? How did you do on the second test?
According to the unofficial answer, I should have been in the top 30%, probably maybe even 25% of the list on the first test. I didn't do as well on the second one. I think I was. How big was that list?
1,000.
So I think I was 350. I think on that list. So, and I got promoted in December of '94. The merge wasn't even really a topic at that point, but it came around so quick. So by April of '95, they had already squeezed 2 more classes in after that to get guys promoted, and so I got lucky, that I got promoted before the merge.
Yeah. So real quick on the test. So there was a test in '91 for promotion from police officer to sergeant, and the New York City Transit Police administered that test. Everybody took it. They studied. It was 100 questions straight up, no nonsense. And according to the proposed answer key, which things can change, and then there's appeals and all that stuff. I slammed it. Like I was rocking. Like I was like pumping fists, doing great things. I was like, this is so good. I am so happy. Like life could not be better. And I was so young on the job, which I will say in retrospect would never have agreed to, like, should not have been a sergeant by that time. I shouldn't even have been a police officer at that age. I was so immature. You know what I mean? But you know how it is. And then they threw it out. And my feedback of what I heard from the rest of the troops were, and we'll talk about why they threw it out, was like, oh, they're throwing it out. We're going to get to do this again. I'm not going to miss that opportunity again. And I think the competition was so much greater for having a sergeant's test so close together that everyone said, I'm not going to miss that opportunity again. And all of a sudden, everybody's studying.
The promotion schools were slammed crowded. Competition was, and the groups of people who were involved with it getting thrown out, they had to have a good showing. Otherwise, it was going to be so obvious of what had occurred. Without getting into the nitty-gritty of it.
Well, I mean, I'll say it. It's our show. The Guardians Association and one member of the Guardians Association went to jail for it. He got arrested, and convicted for giving out the answers to the test. Listen, I have plenty of Black and African American friends on the job who are stellar and awesome. But the fact was, there was a guy who was a major member of the Guardians Association who went to jail for it. He gave away the answers, and they had to redo the test over again. And Bratton was the chief of police at the time of the New York City Transit Police, and he administered it. And I know it was much to his chagrin that he had to do it, but he had to do it. He had to throw it out. That's what happened. However, what I will say is my list number on the second exam was 130. And I got promoted, I think, in a third or fourth group, whatever it was. But my best friend in the world, Yubi Perez, Garofolo, a lot of really great friends. My sergeant's school was so awesome. We had such a great time. And it's funny how you were so mad. I was so mad at the time that it happened, but I wouldn't change anything that's ever happened to me on the police department, because I applied for K-9 and I wanted to be a K-9 cop because I love dogs more than anything in the world, more than most people, if not all people. And I got turned down by it. But then I wound up this other track of investigative, and then I fell in love with the detective bureau. If I had gotten to K-9 and they didn't turn me down, I might not have ever been in the detective bureau at all. So I love whatever happened. Fate and God has a way.
So I can't complain about it either. You know, like you said, things happen for a reason. I look at the bright side. If I had got promoted sergeant sooner, I wouldn't have become a detective, you know?
Yeah.
Even though I was only detective, you know, had the shield actually for 6 months, you know, had it. That's right. It's something I could have, you know, tell my kids about and stuff like that. The other side of the coin is I worked in District 1 with like half a dozen guys that got jammed up big time on that test, you know, for being participants in that.
Yep.
And a lot of them got fired and one went to jail. And I was so disappointed, you know. These were guys I kind of, you know, worked with and joked around with. One guy I carpooled with for a while. And, you know, I don't think if I was given that position or that opportunity that I would have done that. And I was so disappointed that they had because it was out and out cheating, you know?
Yeah, it was bad. A shout out, Anio. Hi, guys. Finally figured this out. I got a text while we were talking, like, how do I get on? So, Anio, very long time. I finally figured this out, I think. So you're here. So I think you did. Very long time no see. Tanio Sullivan.
Yeah.
Great to see you guys. Meet Tom and P2. I still have to get down to Pawleys Island and visit. So
Rockaway girl, 106 precinct, and then she was in the Manhattan Traffic Task Force. Good girl. Good woman. Good person.
Great. Okay, so you go through it. Let's go back to 1989. You're a cop in District 1, and you're in the vicinity of Lincoln Center. So for everyone, pay attention. Mike was involved in a pretty heavy caper. So take it away.
And actually, my partner and I, Brian Basil, we were working plain clothes in Times Square.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So where did you know Brian?
Yeah.
Do you know him? Yeah.
I know his brother, right? He's got a brother on the job?
Does he? I'm not sure. No, I don't think it's his brother. I don't think he's got any brother on the job. I think
it's a different Basil.
Yeah. Okay. But we were working plain clothes in Times Square, and there was a domestic dispute, an assault, and there was a collar made, and the male participant in the dispute getting collared, got injured during the arrest, and Brian took the collar, and I wound up in Roosevelt Hospital with the perp, and I'm in the emergency room at Roosevelt Hospital, and there was so at the time my fiance my worked in Midtown South, so I knew a lot of the Midtown South guys from working the Deuce and through her. So I was in the emergency room. There was one of the guys from Midtown South that had broken his hand. 2 other cops were with him, and I'm sitting there with my prisoner, and all of a sudden the security guard comes running through the hallways screaming about an escaped prisoner, and this guy comes booking out and juts out into the street onto Columbus Avenue. So I got my prisoner. I don't want to. He's asleep, but I don't want him to escape either. So I go running out to the door to make sure that these 2 cops that went out there to get this guy were okay. And right off the bat, he's an EDP who actually escaped, and he pushes one of the cops in front of a cab. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. It's raining out, and I'm like, shit. So I told the sergeant who had the broken hand, I said, do me a favor, just watch my prisoner. And I go chasing after the guy on foot up Columbus. The other officer jumps in a cab and goes up the wrong way on Columbus Avenue chasing this guy. She tells the driver, run him over. And this guy gazelles over the car, but it slowed him down enough that I could catch up to him. And now we get across from Lincoln Center, and he's like toying with me, and he's going back and forth and giving me the eyeballs, and he's like just messing with me. So she comes out from out of nowhere and jumps on his back, and the 3 of us are rolling around in the middle of Columbus Avenue. And she was in the first class that had the silver guns, the stainless guns. Yep. So I catch a glimpse of the gun in his hand that caught off the street light, and he is trying to cock the gun, and it was hammerless.
There's no hammerless. Yeah.
And I'm like, gun, and she's on top of him, and he's coming into her with the gun, and I shot him. So eliminated the threat, as they say. He lived for a while. I don't know what happened to him but he was legitimately EDP. earlier in the day, he had tried to push two Metro North cops in front of a train at Grand Central.
Right.
So 18 years old, he was like 6'2", dreadlocks. Now we carried 38s also, and since we worked in the subway, we carried semi-watt cutters, 165, not plus P. And when I shot him in the head, it went in and came out his eye, or lodged behind his eye. So I just assumed he was dead. We all go back to Roosevelt Hospital again, and he's getting in surgery. And Patty Townsend shows up, and he's like, "No, the kid's alive still." And people think we're shit. People think we suck, but I was actually relieved at the time. I know there's people out there who think that we're just out there to kill people, and it was not the case. And thank goodness the other officer, was okay. And in the end of the day, we all went home safe the next day after a long internal affairs investigation.
So, Pete, I know you have some questions for how Mike was handled the shooting. Patty Townsend, so he was our a trustee. I forgot exact title, but it was a muckety muck in the transit.
Yeah.
Just a phenomenal guy. I mean, probably one of the true last great.
2 combat crosses. He had been involved in 3 shootings in the subway back in the 70s. He actually got shot with Medal of Honor winner, 2 combat crosses. He got shot in Columbus Circle with Don Capitore back in the early 70s with the BLA incident. He was just genuinely a good guy, and he's the guy you wanted on your side when you got in trouble. Yeah.
So post-traumatic stress. So Pete is a big advocate for this kind of stuff. So I know, Pete, you want to jump in here.
Yeah, I mean, did you have people to talk to after that, man? I'll tell you a funny story. There was a shooting that happened in the Bronx, and we all were taken to Jacoby Hospital, and then afterwards they had an EAP program, a lieutenant named Tommy Palazzotto. Great guy. The debriefing occurred in a Plymouth Grand Fury with a case of beer in his car in the parking lot of Jacoby Hospital. Different time. But I know back then it was kind of like suck it up, buttercup, get back to work. I'm just curious how you felt you were treated by the department after the shooting. Did they make sure you were okay? Or was it like, hey, man, just go to the range, requalify, and get back to work kind of deal?
They had me go to an EAP. I spoke with the counselor at J Street. We had in transit, we had what we called Clinic 4, which, was not just the police department, medical thing, but it was for all of transit authority. So, you were there with all these transit authority employees and stuff. So I go in and talk to the counselor, and, I was 23 at the time, and, told him the whole story and went through it. And basically I felt good. I know I did the right thing. And they basically said, okay, take a week off and head, go back to patrol, put in your overtime slip. And, but I had I had trouble down the line, would they have been there for me? A couple of guys from the union would check in from time to time to make sure I was okay. But there wasn't anything really in place to follow up. And things are so much better now. So South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy and their proficiency board, they have public standards group. So they make sure every department now has counselors available, and they have follow-ups for mental health. And you get all these, Tommy, am I allowed to mention company names here?
Yeah, sure.
So we have a Lexapol for our policy and procedures. They also have a Cortico app that provides, a whole slew of different, podcasts or, help you to sleep and help you to deal with stress and marital discourse and that type of thing. So, I recommend guys to take full advantage of it. I'm not putting you guys on the spot, but I've been to counseling for different things,
Pete and I have all agreed. We've been there.
I went way too late in the game. But no, it's weird. Like
you need to get checked out. You need to get a tune-up every once in a while, and just unload, Well,
I'll tell you, when I was in a shooting in housing, they took your firearm. And you had to go to a psychologist at Left Rack City first, and then you'd have to, after the psychologist gave you the blessing, then you went to the range and shot, and then you got your gun back. What I learned in federal, in ATF, and I think it's all federal law enforcement, you get a gun right there on the spot. So I'd have to take agents' guns so that we could give it to the local PD so that they can have it, tested for ballistics and everything. Before that happened, we gave them another firearm. You know what part of the reason was? Obviously, we didn't want to disarm them so they had to protect themselves, but it was so that they didn't feel, hey, man, we're accusing you of something bad for doing your job. And then, of course, we offered them peer support and employee assistance program and many other things. I mean, I think that's one of the things that also hurt back in the days. They stripped you of your gun, had to give you the impression that you did something wrong, even if you did everything by the book and followed the penal law, what is it, Section 35? Even if you did everything right, there was always that stigma when they took your firearm. The defense system, no, hey, I need your gun. Here's another one, right there on the spot.
Yeah. So a couple of things. So let's do this. So I'm glad you said tune-up because my therapist, 75-year-old Jewish woman, she was the coolest person I've ever met in my life. For that kind of relationship. I mean, she was just so cool. And she'd say, Tommy, you don't need to come here every day. You don't need to come here as often as you think. But you know what? Come every couple of months and get a tune-up. So I appreciate you saying that, Mike. And so I bet you there's a guy that Patrick Donahue's mentioning, Joe McGarry. I bet you he was there for you.
Joe was the first.
Proper protocols.
Yeah, Joe was the delegate in District 1, and he was one of the first ones to show up in the morning at the hospital. And, Joe is aces. Did you know Joe well, Tommy?
I knew him not well. I mean, Brooklyn, Manhattan guys, you know how you guys are. You guys look down on us. I get it.
But he was president of the Transit Police FOP. He was one of the founding members of PAPA, very heavily involved in PAPA. And bit part of my bagpipe band, and we were, just great friends. And he was outstanding guy.
One of the best human beings you'll ever meet. And it was Papa that I met, got through Adele, my therapist. So Elizabeth Brannon, sorry if I mispronounced your name, here in Bristol, Connecticut, 2 of us were shot. I don't know what U0026 killed in October 2022. The department had peer counseling / U0026. I'm not sure what that means. Was a huge benefit for our officers. So glad to hear that. Thank you, Elizabeth, for chiming in and sharing that as well.
Elizabeth is a Facebook friend of mine, and she's big into. I don't know her personally, but I know she's a big supporter of the police, and she works in the mental health area. So good to have people like that on our side.
So we have, just for everyone and the listeners, Pete and I have both received independently or together a lot of outreach from officer wellness folks who are very much involved, and we're actively trying to figure out how to squeeze those in, whether we do a standalone show or because we also have a lot of people. We're booked out until May of this year, which I'm honored because I would never have expected having such a deep bench of great guests. So we're trying to figure that out. But officer wellness is an issue that we need to address here and bring some attention to it. Just received a call from Captain Vinny Esposito recently, who said, I don't have a great story. I wasn't a great cop. I made captain. I wasn't a big collar guy, but I've had too many friends kill themselves. So I want to talk about that. So we got to address that. So appreciate everybody. Do your thing, man.
No, man. Look, I say it on a lot of our episodes. I've been in a dark place for too long, man, because I always thought it was more courageous to be quiet and suck it up. Right. And then finally I said, I had enough, man. I came into this profession whole. I want to leave whole. This was after I had my lung carved out from 9/11 lung cancer. And I finally got some help. And it was like the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. I'm like, man, why the fuck did I wait so long? And then I realized, you know what? It actually takes more balls to actually ask for help in our culture than it does to sit there in silence, man. But yeah, you brought it up. We've lost too many cops to suicide. And you know, Brian, I got to give credit where it's due. The military are way ahead of us where they started to realize, hey, some of our folks are coming back from, war, not right. We need to proactively go out there and help them. And they're not perfect, but they're the ones who really started taking those steps first. And law enforcement is trying to catch up to them. But I mean, as a culture, we, the people who have done this job, we got to let folks know that it's okay to not be okay. It's
100%.
not okay not to do something about it, man. It's not okay to treat yourself with this shit when you should be talking to somebody, right? And getting someone, whether it be clergy, whether it be friends who've done the job, whether it be professional counselors, and find what works for you. For some people, it's talking. For some people, it's meditation. For some, unfortunately, it might require medication. But man, leave this profession whole. Leave this, just get your life back. It's just sad to see so many people who are afraid to do that. It takes more courage to ask for help sometimes than it does to just sit there and suck it up.
Yep. Okay. So, Mike, you have the shooting, and about a year later, you get involved in another big caper in the Transit Authority, and you win as a result of your activity and effort. You receive a Medal of Valor. Why don't you tell us about that?
So again, at Times Square, it was during the summer. Brian Basil, my partner, and I were actually peeking our head out to get a little fresh air on the stairway, and this guy comes running up the staircase yelling about some guy fell on the tracks. I think he's getting electrocuted. We go running down there, and it was actually track workers who were doing some maintenance on the tracks. And this guy is in between on the express lane tracks between the two third rails, and you can smell the skin burning, and he's bouncing around in there. And so we jumped down on the tracks. We directed them, but I think they were already doing it, to go down to the blue light to pull the power. And we jumped down, and there was an orange traffic cone there. And we were able to jam the traffic cone in between the guy's body and the third rail. And with our nightsticks, we pried him out of that small area. And he lived, amazingly enough. I mean, we've all seen those guys getting electrocuted. He had a textbook direct current wound. He actually blew out his foot, but he lived. And he was actually part of this gang crew. I thought for sure he was dead, and Night Watch came in and interviewed us afterwards, and they told us the guy lived. So, never for the grace of God again. God put us in the right place, and he was able to go home to his family at some point.
Yeah. Wow. So, two exceptional recognitions. So why don't we bring up? Tell me. I'm going to bring up which ones these were. I don't know. Let's bring up some pictures. Did you have the medal day for both incidents on the same day, or are they two separate medal days?
So the first medal day was in an auditorium. I don't remember exactly. I think it was in the Clickguard Auditorium down there in Brooklyn Tech. This is the second medal day for the Combat Cross. The first medal day, I'm sorry, in the transit, it was exceptional merit. I'm sorry, was it distinguished police duty? So right. The first one, I actually did get two medals. I got a Combat Cross, and there was another incident that we had an armed up in Harlem. There was a guy armed with a knife that we were able to disarm. He was trying to attack people, and I was awarded two medals that medal day. So
I'm surprised they didn't just tell you were doing your job.
I think we might have to thank Bratton for that. I'm not sure. That was a common phrase, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So this was the second medal day that was at outside Brooklyn Borough Hall.
Yep. And then let's see. I got another one here. So this was the big day. And why are you the only guy without the hat on? Is that because of the coif?
Look at that hair. How could I cover that up? Would have been a crime.
I tell you, I miss the bright blue shirts, man. I like them better than the navy blue.
Yeah, those powder blues are nice. And then it's Owen Steele to the left of you. That's Nappy to the left.
John Doe to
the right of you, and then Nappy to the right. I don't know anyone else. And then Paul Oliveri is trying to make his way through.
Yeah.
Who else is in there? Is there anyone else I should know that I don't recognize?
To the left of Nappy is John Bushing from District 20.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who it was next to him. And then next to, at the end there on the left was John Markey and Patty Carlson from District 3.
Yeah.
They got involved in a shooting up there on Lenox Avenue. And then behind me is Walter Sarge from EMRU.
Yep, smart.
Gary Resnick is behind him.
Got it. Yeah, that's with the mustache there. And someone asked is that Vinny Valerio behind you?
Vinny Valerio there, yeah.
Okay. All right. Vinny Boots. Yep. Okay. Was that his token booth robbery caper? Do you know?
I believe so, with Joel Ignacio, yeah.
Yep. All right. Yeah. So good stuff. Really cool stuff. So you go through this, and then you move over to Plainclothes Task Force, which is probably where we met for the first time, in the condo in District 2, in District 2 area. For anyone who, if you understand the value of Manhattan real estate, they had a condo. What was it? Varick Street, right?
Varick Street, yeah.
That we had a police station for plainclothes turnouts on Varick Street and what's the cross?
Hudson.
Man, that I believe when we finally vacated that place, they sold it for like $8 million or $10 million or something like that. Can you imagine?
But it was because you had the police facility on the first floor, then you had all these high-end condos above us, and you got all these plainclothes guys that were dressed like Skells, and all these people with their $5,000 dogs coming in and out of the other entrance.
So funny. So you do a little CW, talk about that, and then you move over to the decoy squad, which we also overlap a little bit.
So I always, I look back on it, and I always kind of feel like I wish I could have did that part of my career longer. I wish I could have been in uniform a little bit longer, or I could have been in task force a little bit longer. And then the opportunity came up to go to decoy squad, and I couldn't pass it up. So my story about the decoy squad is I remember being on TPF. Roll call ended. I went in to get shot my shoes, and 60 Minutes was on the air, and it was a Sunday night, and they were broadcasting the original decoy squad where they were, kicking ass. I mean, they dressed Subway. They did not dress upscale, and they blended in with the hood and the people riding the trains, and they would get up close and personal with the criminals, and they'd have their decoy guy wearing their chain or wallet. I guess they did wallets at the time, but I watched that in awe, and I was like, Jack Maple was on, Jack Maple and Stevie Savis and all these guys, Billy McGowan. All these guys were like, you knew who they were because they were like the up and coming superstars of the transit police, at least as far as investigative work goes. And I said, that's what I want to do. I had it in my mind, I'm going to do that at some point in my career. And when the opportunity came up, and I got interviewed, and John Cornicello was the sergeant at the time. He was doing the interview.
Previous Ten-Four Tavern guest, so John Cornicello.
And he was my first sergeant in decoy squad. So anyway, good task force. I worked with Nikki Vuzquel as a partner, and we bounced around. Had some great bosses, Stewie Holmes and Steve. What was Steve? Help me out there, Tommy. Bald guy with the mustache. It was Steve Kelly, and Bobby Kinsella and all those.
Decoys with Adam Rubin.
Adam Rubin.
Right there.
Yep. Worked together in decoys with him. That was the day we got promoted to detective.
Yep.
On the right is me and Gary Resnick. Got down in DC for Police Memorial.
Yep. So I just want to do a shout out to Adam Rubin, Broward County Sheriff. 100%. He's a sergeant. So Pete, we should talk about him and what he does down there. He's been running around Broward County. He's doing big robbery capers, and he's a robbery sergeant in some group down there. I saw him a couple of months ago. So
he just retired recently.
Say again?
He just retired recently.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
So I talked to him like less than 6 months ago. He was still on. So good for him. Congratulations. I'll reach out.
I guarantee you that I crossed paths with him, and he probably worked a lot with Bobby Cicada, who was going to be our next ATF director. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get busy down there. I didn't realize how how hard they work down there.
Yeah. You know, it's the second largest sheriff's office in the United States.
Wow.
Yeah. Second to Los Angeles.
Is that when you say size, you mean sworn, Pete?
Sworn, but they also cover fire. I mean, they cover everything. Everything falls under. But yes, sworn, second largest in the United States, behind Los Angeles County.
Yeah, it's no joke. So tell everyone about the decoys, because I feel exactly the same way you do, Mike. I wish I could have did it longer, but you know, they had this freaking thing called the sergeant's promotion. They called me and I had to get promoted to sergeant. And then Danny Calamine, Scotty McGoldrick, and a whole bunch of other guys got promoted to detective the same day that I made sergeant. And that was the day I was supposed to get promoted to detective. So you made detective and you said I only had it for 6 months, but at least you did it. I was like, is there any way I can walk, make detective, come back, and then walk up for sergeant? They're like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like nobody does that. I go, but I want to do it. I just need it for 5 minutes. Yeah. And that goes back to Joey Herbert, a previous guest on the Ten-Four Tavern, who was promoted 10 more. What?
Rockaway guy?
Yes, Rockaway, who got promoted 10 more times and retired as the deputy chief, who was the Joint Terrorist Task Force commanding officer, who was the national security advisor to Congress on Homeland Security. But he said his greatest promotion was to detective. So I think, Pete, you might feel pretty close to that too. So
I love being a detective, but the truth is, Tommy, I never took a promotional test in NYPD or housing. I didn't promote till I was with ATF, and 6 years in New York. I just wanted to get out of New York, and the only way to leave New York as an ATF agent is to promote, because nobody transfers to New York. It's very expensive. They all transfer down to where Mike lives. They want to work in the Carolinas, where they live next door to the doctors and the lawyers. But yeah, I never took a promotions test.
So Mike, tell everyone for those who don't know what the decoy squad was. I had the most fun I ever had on the job. Like when I ran the detective squad, I was a sergeant of detectives. I was the 7-9. Like, we laughed a lot, but the actual action and the actual behavior of what we were doing in the setup and the game, the decoys, was by far the most fun. I had tons of laughs in the squad, and we never, ever went a day without laughing our asses off and having a great time with each other. However, the decoys was just a whole other thing.
So the original decoy squad that I mentioned before, they got embroiled in this controversial practice, or that they were accused of what's the term, Tommy? I'm thinking I just blanked out for a second. Yeah, and because they were dressing like their clientele, and they were fitting in, and they were being accused of, hey, why don't you go rob that guy? And I don't believe it happened, but went to court, and it was kind of challenged a bit. The second iteration of decoys, they retooled it where we had to wear business attire every day, like a detective or like a businessman, really. We had to, we couldn't carry a wallet or anything like that. We only wore jewelry or a beeper or a watch. So if we were to get robbed, it would eliminate the perp's ability to say, hey, I was just looking to help him out, and I was just looking for a wallet and had an affirmative defense type of thing.
Right.
And they went into detective work where when you made the arrest, or when you were the recovering officer or the interviewing officer, you did DD5s, you did a whole case folder. So the supervisors in the decoy squad were also previous detectives, so they would teach you how to work a case and try to prepare you for when you go to a squad, robbery squad, or a transit police district squad. You knew exactly what you were doing, and it was a great learning experience. So one of the biggest benefits of being part of this operation, you witnessed it was mostly grand larcenies, the guy snatching the chain or taking whatever property it was, and you witnessed this. So when you go into this interview room, you know exactly what happened. You know exactly what he did and how he did it. And was such a great opportunity to be a interrogator, reading people, how they lie and how they work themselves out. And then you have to practice. It was great practice for us where, hey, you weren't really out there to rob that guy, were you? But it's just a crime of opportunity and how to cajole that confession out of them. And we got confessions almost every time. And, I think of all the collars that I was involved in, there was only one that was a declined prosecution, and that was because he was the nephew of a city council member. So,
never changed, brother.
We talked about that with John Cornicello. He cited that case too. It's one. The only grand jury indictment that didn't come down, there was one.
So I was a decoy that day in Grand Central, and these kids were messing with me, trying to set my hair on fire. And the team actually, since they didn't rob me, they actually just shooed them away and escorted them onto a train. And then I wound up getting my wallet and my watch and my chain taken from this guy who was half in the bag. So who knows why he did it? He wasn't destitute, that's for sure. But he knew the right people. So
let me ask you a question, Mike. So when you do these interviews, you're talking about something that you witnessed, and I'm sure there's some people, even though you were there witnessing it, they'll say, "No, man, it didn't happen. It wasn't me." Blah blah blah. But how often, when you did these decoy operations in the debriefing, were you guys able to get confessions to other stuff those folks did on the trains?
So we did try to do. We tried to build upon it, and we tried to target stations that were part of a pattern or high crime stations. But a white guy like me doesn't come off as
not a good decoy either. I was not a decoy.
When I was a decoy, it either had to be in Midtown Manhattan or Lower Manhattan type of thing. Maybe a couple of stations in Brooklyn. But we would try to gain more information, and we would tell them, hey, do you know about something else? I'm not saying that you did it, but do you know of someone? It'll help you out in the long run. And there was a small percentage of times where that happened. A lot of these guys were just crime of opportunity. A lot of them, but crime of opportunity, but they also had previous convictions or arrests for a lot of stuff. So they were not angels, that's for sure. My first, I was with Danny D'Alessandro. We were on the team, and it was I had been out there like 4 or 5 times and on different days and never got hit. We're at Canal Street, and Danny took the collar, and this kid snatches my chain and starts walking away. Danny grabs him, and they're putting him in the van. And so, where the decoy stays in character, we want the perp to think that he actually robbed a drunk guy, a drunk businessman, or a guy who was sick. So this way, when you go to the interrogation or the questioning, he thinks that he's just robbed a civilian. We never tell him until the defense attorney gets the 5s that he robbed a cop. So Danny looks at this guy and says, "I know you." This guy had robbed the previous decoy like a year earlier. So so he was not the brightest guy in the world, but career criminal, So
I would love to know how many guys rob more than one decoy. There's probably a small population of those guys.
That's a term you never hear anymore, and they're out there. You never hear the term career criminal anymore because they've become so soft on
offensive.
We don't want to stigmatize.
It's offensive.
Yeah. Remember they had the CCAUs, the career criminal apprehension units in all the boroughs for a while too?
Yeah. Wait, so that kind of behavior is offensive because Tiffany Caban said the other day in New York City Council that broken windows and precision policing are debunked. They're not true. And yet I have a brother-in-law who's a clinical psychologist who we talk about all the time. The best predictor of behavior is previous behavior. Like that's what it is. That's what a recidivist is. That's what precision policing is. You target the most violent of violent offenders. You go after these people, broken windows, George Kelling and the whole Bratton thing and the Maple thing, all of that stuff. And so I got to talk to you about Maple. And so my understanding is Dunlop was Maple's.
Mention his name. That's right.
Yeah. So Maple was a genius.
Yeah.
John Dunlop was really the brains that seeded Jack Maple to be the genius he became. So just a shout out to John Dunlop.
He was the guy with the subway maps and the pins and all that stuff before people. Yeah.
So like anyone who's out there in any political realm telling you about recidivism and career criminals and it's offensive and precision policing has been debunked, they must really hate their communities, because we need to eradicate these people from victimizing the good, hard-working people of all these communities. So anyway, I don't want to say that's about Mike. So that's my little.
Soft. You call it the prior adjusted affected persons unit. Prior adjusted, because that's what they want. They have prior contact with criminal justice. You have to call it something soft and then go in hard and kick the shit out of them. Prior adjusted affected persons unit. What do you think?
Yeah.
I'll pitch it to Mom Donnie tomorrow.
I don't think he was.
No, he's a douche.
All right, Mike. So you go to Decoy Squad, you get promoted to detective, and you land in District 2. I think I was a sergeant there when you had just made detective, and then Vito Busante is your partner. And shout out to Freddie Corvo, who was, I know he plays golf with Vito right now in Florida at some point. I talked to him this week. He said he's looking forward to seeing the show. So shout out from Freddie Corvo to you too, Mike. Vito Busante, you 6 months in District 2. What was that like?
It was fun. It was, it was different now. So it was like real detective work, or, so to speak. I mean, we dealing with transit police crimes. You're dealing with pickpockets. You're dealing with some robberies, some assaults, and that type of thing. But, we covered from 34th Street down to Whitehall Street. So you had all lower Manhattan. So you run the gamut of things. I mean, I remember one night we had guys from Penn Station come in with this kid who jumped the turnstile, and he had skeleton remains in his pocket. So now I'm trying to figure out where, interviewing this guy, trying to figure out where he got it from, and looking at them, and they were they were already hardened, and it was kids. It turns out that they had raided a mausoleum in Queens, and the kid was into all this death metal stuff, and he was just trying to make a keychain out of it. You can see the drill holes he was trying to do into the fingers, and he was going to sell them and stuff. So just oddball stuff. And I remember one night we had Vito and I were working, and we had a guy get his wallet snatched while he was buying a token at 23rd Street. While the perp was running away, he dropped a billfold out of his. This guy was actually wearing like not a suit and tie, but like a business jacket, and he dropped his billfold and with his address and everything on it. So if you don't know, I get in the car, we go down to Nostrand Avenue, over Flatbush, and as we're pulling up, Vito's like, all right, we might be here a while. So we park in between two cars, and we're watching the guy's door and waiting for him to come home or go out. And here he comes, like less than 10 minutes later, he's coming out the door with two suitcases, and his wife is there yelling at him, going like this. And we're like, what the heck? So we go scoop him up, take him back to the command. Textile salesman, had been addicted to crack previously, got himself cleaned up, fell off the wagon, and needed some quick fix, and started snatching, pickpocketing people, robbing people, I guess. And, I kind of felt bad for the guy. He was very apologetic. He's like, I don't know what happened to my life and all this type of thing. And our victim couldn't really pick this guy out of a lineup. And I convinced this guy, can we do a reverse lineup? And we put the perp in the lineup, and I got a bunch of cops to sit in on it. And he, I put the victim in the lineup room, and the bad guy picked the victim out. So I went to the DM. Well, that was before.
Is there any established case law on that? Yeah, I robbed that fucking guy.
Yeah, what's the established case law on that? Because you got a cooperating perp, and he's picking out the victim out of a lineup. It's brilliant.
He said he was going to plead guilty anyway. He just wanted to get his shit straightened out again,
Poor bastard. So,
yeah.
Oh my God. So listen, everybody, we're an hour and 40 minutes in. We still have a little bit to go. We're going to go a little over the 2 hours today for sure. Mike is a bit of a police historian, so we got some medals, and then we have a map of every single New York City police officer killed in the line of, well, maybe as close as you possibly can, I would imagine, Mike. And then you also have, to your credit, any police officer who was killed while in the military all over the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, any New York City police officer who was killed in combat, yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So we want to talk about that before we wrap up. So just teasing up for people to hang on and listen. We got a real good group here listening live right now. So Freddie, the guy from Decoys, not Freddie Corbo. What was the other small Spanish guy? Freddie. From
the Bronx. I remember who you're talking about.
I can picture him because he was on a TV show. He was on Cops.
Freddie Velez.
Freddie Velez. Yep. There
Yeah.
you go. Bill Mango, 98. Freddie Velez. There you go. Yeah. So Cops TV. So my team was Chris Robinson and Ricky Chestnut. Were the sergeant.
Last week, by the way.
He did?
I did. I spoke with Chris last week. Yeah.
Oh, good. Chris is a good guy. I mean, probably one of my favorite sergeants of all time.
He was in those two, yeah.
Well, Ricky, but he wasn't bad. Ricky was okay, but Chris was great. And then I had Deborah Holder, Richie Wilson, Richie Eckberg, rest in peace. Selena Rentis, Chris Kohlmeyer. Gosh, I'm forgetting. A Dominican guy. He spoke with such a heavy accent. Oh, I have a funny story, but I'm not. Again, it's your show. I don't want to take it up. I had a great Joel Caceres and Howie Brown.
Yeah.
So Joe Mango. Those were no team. So anyway, they come in and Court TV wants to film us and follow us, and we huddled as a team. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was so proud of everyone because I'm like, I don't want to do this, and everyone was like, we don't want to do this. And they were like, what do you mean you don't want to, you don't want to be on TV? And we're like, no, we don't. And I was really proud to be a part of this. We do police work and we're going to do it and we're not going to chase the camera. And Jimmy Normile is texting me, telling me Freddie Velez. So I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. Is it Freddie Velez? So, and we just said, no, we don't want to do it. We got work to do and we don't want to be distracted by the cameras. And I was really appreciated. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. And the cops
you did not have them follow you around?
They did not follow us.
So we had I don't know if you remember the show American Detective. They were with us for like 5 or 6 weeks, And it was a distraction. It was totally. I
think it's great when it goes good, but you know how it goes.
They didn't ask us if we were happy, if we wanted them or not. They just told us.
Oh, well, no, they asked us and we said no, and they just moved on. So there was that. Okay, so you go to Decoys, you go to Squad, you go to District 2, you get promoted to Sergeant, and you said you needed a hook to get to District 32?
Oh, it was awful. God, it was, I didn't want to go to Manhattan. I had already been I did all my career in Manhattan. I was tired of the traffic. I had a young child, newborn at the time, and I lived in Long Beach. So I wanted to go to Brooklyn. I had heard the commute was better in Brooklyn. So no openings in District 33. I did my sergeant's training in 33, and I loved it. I would have loved to have gone there. But the only other openings in Brooklyn was District 30, and a group of guys in my class were going there. I think I bounced Ralph Barato out of out of a spot in District 32. So me and Doug Ingram, we wound up going there, and Doug's down here in South Carolina now too. And District 32 was in the hall, Franklin Avenue, at the end of the platform. It was, you could tell the construction of the facility was an afterthought. For people never been there, this locker room is tiny, tiny little weight room that they had squeezed in there somewhere. the supervisor's locker room was right next to the cops' locker room, and if you had a prisoner that had to go to the bathroom, you had to walk them through the locker room, and they had, the same bathroom as the cops. It was atrocious. I mean, really, I had never been to anything like that and seen anything like that. I mean, we had made collars there, and the arrest processing area was so small, and we were on top of each other. But once again, you were in the middle of the ghetto, in the middle of the hood, and the cops were just great. They looked out for each other, and I had heard rumors about how it was, it's kind of a segregated command. A lot of African Americans worked there, and everybody got along great. It wasn't. I never felt anything but respect from everybody who worked there. So, huge area covered from New Lots Avenue all the way to Atlantic Avenue, by the Flappers Terminal, Long Island Railroad. Not a lot of good places to eat, but we made do. But I was only there like till the merge, and then when the merge came around, the SBA delegate from the NYPD SBA came down, and he's like, "Hey, welcome to Big Brother," and all this stuff. And he's like, the department, we're the same department now. If you want to put in for something, you want to go to aviation, it's open to you. And we all looked at each other. Yeah, okay, sure. So I put in for the 101 precinct because I lived in Long Beach, and I put in for Harbor, which I knew was a pipe dream, and I actually put in for the 73rd precinct. So we were doing sweeps at the time, and for those who are not familiar with that, we would do these fair evasion sweeps, and we'd get 10 or 15 guys who perps who jumped the turnstiles, and we would take them back to we couldn't take them to our transit police district anymore, so we had to go to the precincts, and some treated us better than others, and I always felt like the guys in the 73 were didn't look down upon us. I'd been to Midtown South with sweeps. I've been to the 7-5 with the sweeps. We've gone to the 7-7 and stuff, and I just felt a little bit more home in the 7-3. Plus, it was not a bad commute, and the guys there were great. I loved it there, and it was one of those times where I wish I could have been there longer. But Dave Sweeney called me, and Richie Baggs. Dave Sweeney called me, and he said, "We are trying to build up the bus unit." The bus unit now, there you go, Dave. That's at the community mayor's thing at JFK Airport. Tell me that was an event.
Let me just interrupt, Mike. So the transit police, which I was very much a part of, Danny Calamine and I used to go to the mayor's community Christmas party at JFK all the time. And I know I was there with you probably on that day. With Dave Sweeney, Danny D'Alessandro. We all used to do it. All of those kids. There's no more humbling thing that I ever did was to go to those Christmas parties for those years, late 80s and early 90s. Nellie Bly in the summer, and then JFK Christmas party in the winter. And that helicopter would land.
Yeah, Santa Claus
would come.
The Port Authority did a great job on those things. And there were 1,000 special needs kids that came in, and there was always a ton of help. You wheelchair them in, or you help them to their seat, and they were so happy to see Santa Claus come riding around on a police car and everything. And it was, it made you thankful for everything that you had, but it also was so rewarding to see these kids that would just eat it up.
I had that same T-shirt you were wearing there, man.
Did the shirt?
I did. Stu Friedman gave me one of those.
That's right.
I was a trustee for the New York Shields back in the early 90s. And Stu Friedman was on the board. He gave me one of those T-shirts. I used to wear it to the
100%. That's right. That's where I got mine from.
Small world, man.
Yeah. So,
so anyway, I just want to shout out for the mayor's Christmas party for that. And I'm glad you brought that up. I have a picture with me and Danny in black and white from the Around the Clock, the transit magazine. Like I said, that helicopter landed and Santa Claus came out and those kids went nuts. It's probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
Goosebumps, right?
Anyway, so they call you and tell you got to come to the street crime bus unit.
Well, so Dave called and said, "Do you want to come?" Street crime had been absorbed into, surface crime had been absorbed into street crime. But he said you won't be assigned to street crime. You're going to be assigned to the Brooklyn Bus Depot on 36th Street and 5th Avenue. So Joe Cirencione was retiring, and I was going to be taking his spot. Another good group of guys, but you want to feel like, like you were talking about before, Danny, about you were told this career path and you followed it, but you didn't get the shield, and these guys felt beaten down. Mike Marks, Mike Noop, all these guys that had been working so hard.
Marks, yeah.
John Salveson, all these different guys that had got.
Salveson, yeah.
All these guys that worked with the Brooklyn Task Force, they were all task force guys, and they got to the bus squad expecting to get the shield because they were investigating crimes that happened on buses, assaults on TA employees, pickpockets. There were some superb pickpocket guys there at the time. So when you got there and they were taken out of the career path and put into street crime, which wasn't the worst thing in the world, but you would base your whole career on these moves, and as well as anybody else. And Pete, the same thing is, in order to advance in the department, it's like a chess game. You have to think 2 moves ahead. Where am I going to get my best opportunity for overtime? Where am I going to get my best opportunity to travel? Best opportunity to get promoted, that type of thing. And they got, so it was hard to motivate these guys sometimes. They did their work. They respected the supervisors, but now their motivation was just different. So, and then not long after I got there in October with Timmy Roy, actually, and we, they took us out of street crime, and then they put us in the traffic division. And they won't, you guys are going to be doing taxis and buses now. So Timmy was killed in 9/11. Timmy and I shared a desk in the Queens bus unit office. Funny guy, good family man. When they were keeping that list of the guys from the NYPD that were killed pretty close to the vest for a few days. And I went down to operations and was able to get my hand on it. And I saw Timmy's name on it. I was just floored. I could have dropped right there. And the story with Timmy was him and Sean Flanagan, who was a cop from the 6-3 who came to the bus unit. He was also a member of our bagpipe band. Sean were going down to Brooklyn TVB, traffic court, and the planes hit. They diverted. They were helping people out of one of the buildings. This obese woman was coming down the stairs, and she was exhibited symptoms of possibly going to cardiac arrest, and she was very short of breath, and they carried her over to this ambulance. And Timmy told Sean to stay with her until EMS came back to the ambulance, and Timmy went back in, and the building came down, and they didn't find Timmy until March 2002. And the ironic thing was a couple of the guys in the bus unit, we were in Savannah for St. Patrick's Day. We were on River Street, and I get a call from a couple of guys from the bus unit, and I'm like, I wonder what's going on. And I get on the phone, and they said, hey, do you want to come down to the pile? We just found Timmy. We want you to come down and help carry him out of the pit. And I said, I'm down in Savannah. I'm with Sean. He said, oh, we've been trying to get in touch with him too. So all the guys in the, we knew that Sean was going to be devastated because they were together that day. And, we went to the bar, and we got Sean, we were playing in these different bars down there. So we got Sean and all the guys in the band. We just kind of huddled up, and we told Sean that they had found Timmy that day. And we all just broke down, we had a family moment. And it was hard. It was really hard. Hard not to be there, hard to realize the finality of it. We all knew what this outcome was, but, just we'd already had a funeral for Timmy,
Right.
So what we're going to, do we have to go to another funeral now and all this stuff? And, it's just one of a million stories from 9/11. But that's my, one of my personal ones,
So just everyone, for those who are watching, I just pulled up a picture of Mike at the scene of Ground Zero. So, yeah. So thanks for sharing that with Timmy. I didn't know that. I mean, there's so many stories. I mean,
everybody's got a story. That's right.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, so anything with the street crime before you go?
Just to talk about this photo real quick. we got down there. I'd already worked a 12-hour shift. We couldn't. We were part of hate crimes. We were getting killed with hate crime cases. Anti-Middle Eastern cases were coming in by the boatloads, and we were just working 12 to 16-hour shifts, just trying to catch up with them all. My CEO said, I can't, assign too many guys down to different things. Guys were itching to get down to the pile or do some 9/11 related work. We go after work one morning, and we're on the pile, and this guy from the Bronx pulls out a disposable camera, and I'm like, guy, this is not cool. This is not a historical. I mean, it's just a historical event, but it's, you put the cameras away, somebody's going to beat your head in, if they see you doing it. And he said, okay, boss, I appreciate it. He took a couple of pictures. He took this one. He mailed me this picture later on. And even though I kind of was reluctant at the time, it's one of my most prized pictures of my career. It is such a historical event, and it means so much that, to people I know that, that I was there, and that I, it's such a piece of American history now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No
I hope you're in the program, Mike.
What's that?
I hope you're in the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Knock on wood, I don't have any, verified ailments, but I know too many people that do, and it's important for guys to get down there and get checked out every year, get that baseline done, and make sure you stay healthy.
Tommy, can I interject something right now? Listen, I was in the program. I lost my right lung to lung cancer. I'm fine now. I've been cancer-free for years. One of my best friends, a man who taught me 90% of what I know as an investigator, had a bone marrow transplant recently because he had leukemia. And this guy was a hero cop, hero detective, and wouldn't join the program because he said, hey, man, there's people that got it worse than me, Pete. And I begged him, join the program. Well, he had a bone marrow transplant, was in remission. Now he's got leukemia again, and it's not looking good. And he never joined the program because he felt that there were people who deserved it more than him. I love the man like a father. I will say this, the program is for everybody. If you were there and you wore a uniform, please make sure that you're in the program. Don't leave your family destitute because they got to pay for your treatment, man. Just do what you got to do to take care of yourself and your family.
Crazy times, man. So thanks for sharing those stories, Mike. So let's do this. Billy Blestoff, 7027. Thanks. Timmy Roy is a true gentleman.
100%.
For sure. Okay, so
bus unit was just evolved into a different animal. We, instead of dealing with crime, now we're dealing with traffic and bus lanes and parking tickets and 511s and all these different things. The good thing, we got a lot of overtime there, and I worked with a lot of good cops there. Most of them were transit. The NYPD guys that came, we kind of transitized them, and and how many people have you heard in your career, like, man, kind of wish I had gotten transit at some point. It's like, it was a good group of guys.
Did you hear that? Housing Pete.
I told you, I'm fucking 60. The mandatory retirement age for cops was 62. I would still be a fucking housing cop in New York City if we never worked. I loved that job. Loved the people. No way I would have left. No way. I loved NYPD too, man, but it was a different animal. We were family. Totally. We were family.
All right. So when do you leave? Hey, so check it out. This is the Ten-Four Tavern, right?
Yeah.
And you know what happens in taverns?
You got people popping in.
What's up there, Chiefy?
Oh, James. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. How are you, my friend?
My fellow District 1 brother.
That's right. District 1 alumni. Decoy alumni, too, after you.
Yep.
That's right. So, Jimmy, thanks for jumping in.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me.
You too?
You ever meet Pete, Jimmy? Jimmy, Pete?
No, I can't say that, Peter. Jimmy Normal. Pleasure.
Good to meet you, brother. God bless.
So, Jimmy eventually ends up, he's got a long established career as well, but ends up in Brooklyn South Homicide. So you guys have, Yep.
When's he coming on?
I think I'm on. I can see myself on the
I
screen.
want to hear the whole story, man. This is
Oh,
a cameo. I want not as a cameo appearance, man.
Jimmy's got to have his own podcast.
Yep. And Jimmy's father was a legend in the Transit Police Department in OPD.
And young James Normal graduates from the academy on March 9th.
That's awesome.
Congratulations.
Round 3.
God bless.
3 generations of normals. That's excellent.
Oh my God! So thanks for dropping in. So
Thanks for
also,
having
were
me.
you in band practice tonight, Jimmy?
No, actually, that was last week. I had to drive back to New York to shovel out my wife today. So
Jimmy's a dual resident of South Carolina, New York.
Oh, nice.
All right.
But
All
getting
right,
ready for
cool.
St. Patrick's. So
Jimmy, hang in here and listen to Mike brag about his career and pound his chest and everything. You know.
No, Brett. Trying to be humble here.
I've learned a lot from Michael over the years. Always happy to listen to Michael.
Yeah. So, Mike, you leave, and then how do you end up in the hate crime task force? I'm not. So this is where I don't know where that happened, how that happened.
So we had a supervisor, inspector who was in charge of the Surface Transportation Enforcement District, where we kind of fell under. He just made our life miserable. He was one of these guys that would go in front of roll call in front of these guys and tell them what a great job they're doing, but come back to the sergeants, lieutenants, and say, "Hey, you guys ain't worth the shit. You know, you're either with the program, you're not with the program," and blah 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 blah. And I couldn't work for the guy anymore. If I saw him on the street, he was always a pleasant enough fellow, but to be working for him was very difficult. And I got to throw out to Vinny Gravelli, who worked in Midtown South as a cop, and I guess he worked in DCPI for a while. I think he Manhattan South Narcotics. He got a shield. He was in hate crime task force, and they were looking for a different. They were expanding. So under Giuliani, they got a huge grant, like a $3 million grant, to expand hate crime task force, and we got new cars. We got a surveillance van. We got all his equipment, cameras, and everything. I didn't think hate crimes was that big of a deal, or that prevalent. Not that it was not big of a deal, but it was not that overwhelming of a caseload. But they had 20 detectives and 6 supervisors assigned to it. We only did like 250 cases a year, So each detective, had a small caseload, and they expected them to work, whether it was a harassment, a simple assault, assault 3 or something. They expected them to work that thing down to the bone. So, Barbara Cecilia was the CO at the time. Vinny had recommended me. I went and interviewed with Barbara. I don't know if you knew Barbara at all, but she was really, really good people. And she interviewed me, and she's like, "Look, you're gonna have to go in front of the board, get scooped up by, risk getting scooped up by IAB," and I did. And during the interview, I kind of got the feeling that some call might have been made because
I know who it was. I can tell you who it was.
Oh yeah, who?
I'm gonna guess it was Mike Ansborough.
I don't think so. I think it was Chief Moakley. She was kind of friendly with him, and he was the XO of the IAB at the time. So, I get the IAB guy just kind of threw me like a softball question and moved on. And somebody said, you want to go to hate crimes? The guy from OCCB was like, "Well, don't you want to come to narcotics?" I'm like, "No, I definitely don't want to go to narcotics." Narcotics work did not do anything for me. I knew it was grueling work and crazy hours, and he was offended. He was really offended by I didn't want to go to OCCB, and I wanted to go into hate crimes. So it all worked out good. I got there in 2000, and then 2001 happened, and 9/11 happened, and we just got killed with all these cases. And we had some interesting cases. I had you're a Marine Park guy, right, Tommy?
Yep.
So we had a couple of cases where the church over there on Avenue S, was it Avenue T, Avenue U? If you said the name, I don't. Good Shepherd, is that it?
Good Shepherd.
Yeah.
So St. Thomas was on Flatbush and P. Flatlands of P. Good Shepherd, probably. Yeah.
Well, there was definitely Good Shepherd because they had this guy running around chopping the heads off of statues and graffitiing the churches around town. Then we had another group of kids that were doing, they were burning Christmas decorations on their people's houses and stuff like that. And it was all,
or maybe St. Mark's
community, because the community goes in an uproar, and these are higher influential neighborhoods, and the Catholic Church is involved with it now, or you got synagogues involved with certain things. So it's a very highly politicized unit. You needed to know how to operate in the spotlight a little bit and try to manipulate with the media and with these different community leaders and religious leaders. I guess the majority of our cases were probably anti-gay, anti-Semitic. It was a close second. So these are hot topic crimes, and we were able to navigate it pretty well. So I ended my career there. I did 6 years there, but 9/11 was obviously a difficult time for everybody, and uniquely difficult for us because we went from 250 cases a year to 500 or 600 cases in 2001, and it kind of stayed busy for a couple of years and then just kind of leveled off. But it also gave me the opportunity. Barbara Cecilia came in and she asked everybody, we had 3 sergeants there at the time, and they asked us all, do you want to go to some type of special training? He says, I want to, you guys are doing a great job. What are you interested in doing? And one guy wanted to go to homicide school. The other one wanted to go to dignitary protection. And I said, any chance of getting into the hostage training? And she's like, huh. She said, let me see. And she got me in. And it was an outstanding career opportunity for me. It was so very rewarding. It's just a prestigious unit within the department, and worked with great people. Jack Cambria was, Gentleman Jack. He's legendary. And
so hold on. So Gentleman Jack coming up in 2 weeks, everybody. Gentleman Jack Cambria coming up in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. He's going to bring the Italian police with him. So he's going to invite everybody to Italy. A little late for the Olympics, Milan, but we might go to Naples and maybe I'm a big fan of Venice. So, but hey, we got a caper. So you want to talk about hostage? But before we do that, when you were saying the number of cases in the hate crimes task force, that's for the whole unit?
Yes.
Yeah. So and Pete, I need both of you to comment from local numbered detective squads. So how many cases did you handle, Jimmy, when you were in a 6-0? Were you in a 6-0?
I started out in the Warren squad and did a mutual go to the 6-0. And I was fortunate enough to be in a team with 2 housing detectives and Tommy Capiello, who was a transit detective. And it depended because I was the low seniority guy. So in the summer, I was probably rolling through 30, 40 cases a month. But it was busy. We covered Coney Island, so we had a decent amount of cases. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the number, but you're rolling through a lot of shootings, and it was fun. It was a good place to learn. Busy was good.
Having the entire squad.
What was that? 15.
How many guys were in the squad itself?
3 teams of 4, and then 4 guys in the Ram.
Yeah. So we had 20 guys in the hate crime task force, 3 sergeants, a lieutenant, and an inspector. And actually, after Barbara Cecilia, we had Dennis Blackman, who got promoted to deputy chief. So we had a deputy chief in charge of 25 guys.
So I'm gonna tell you, when I got to the 7-9 in 1999, we had 30 murders, 100 non-fatal shootings, and 5,000 criminal investigations between the squad and the Rim.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
That's so good. So good. All right. So Mike, let's get back. So this is a big caper on the HNT. So you and Wally, so tell us about it.
It was I think it was a Sunday morning. I was actually leaving Long Beach when the call came in. I used to carry a radio around. I was, coming back and forth to work, and I heard this call come in from the 113 precinct of a barricaded people shot. And I heard them request, the ESU got on scene and said, hostages, request HNT and Taru. And I pulled up around the same time as Wally did, and we both started trying to get in touch with the perp on the phone. We got a couple of different cell phone numbers. Turns out that the guy that was doing the shooting and the hostage taking, he had just gotten out of jail. He found out he went to go visit his baby mama, and she was not there. And this was kind of like a flop house, crack house type of thing. But their kid, their baby, was in the house with the grandmother and a bunch of crackheads. So he goes out to his car and gets a shotgun, and he starts shooting the place up. And he shot the grandmother who was running this crack house, shot another guy, and they get whisked off to the hospital. And then he barricades himself in the house with a baby, and he's telling us three other hostages. So 6 hours later, and then I think you can see in the thing that 48 hours was actually riding with the hostage team at the time, and they're on the scene with Wally. They were riding with Wally, I guess, and it was 6 hours in the van talking and trying to get this guy to give up the hostages, at least let the baby out and that type of thing. Wally was the primary. I was his coach. Jack Cambry was doing all the intermediary stuff. Chief Espo was on the scene, and everybody and their brother was there. So at the end of the day, we were able to convince this guy to let the baby out, and he gives the baby to this other hostage, and they walk outside. Now, the guy hands the baby off. Actually, Chief Espo actually took the baby from the guy, and walked it to the ambulance. The guy says, "I think he just shot himself." And we were like, "Well, what about the other two hostages?" And he's saying, "No, there weren't other people there. It was just me and the baby." So ESU sends in the dog. Dog indicates that the guy's down. They go in. We never heard a gunshot. ESU surrounded the house. They never heard a gunshot. I was on the open line with the guys. Wally was trying to. We thought we were going to have to negotiate with this guy further. And Wally went out to the outside, and I didn't hear a gunshot on the phone. But this guy took his head off with a shotgun. He said he promised he wasn't going back to jail. So at the end of the day, we saved the baby's life. The grandmother passed away. I think the other guy died too. And the baby's mother, who was in a hotel with some other guy down by JFK Airport, she showed up, and part of the tenets of hostage negotiation is you try not to let intermediaries get on there, and because things can go off the rails very quickly. And he kept insisting on talking to the kid's mother, and we just couldn't allow it. It was too volatile, and we don't know if he was going to do the baby and then do her to kind of hurt her, So, it's just these things become very fluid, and you have to play things sometimes not by the book. We had another situation where a guy had shot up his parents' house, shot up their car in the 105, runs up and down the street, letting off a bunch of rounds, and then he's cornered in a backyard in the 105. And we all get there. I get there, and this 20 cops kind of just surrounded him, and he's got the gun to his head. And, normally we don't let an intermediary come in, but first he found out I was Irish, and he was an Italian guy. He didn't want to talk to any Irish cops at all. He wanted to talk to an Italian cop. So Jack Cambria started doing the negotiation, and I started gathering intel of who he might have been familiar with, close with. And he was a painter. He liked to paint. And there was this 80-year-old woman who lived down the street from him, and she had a greenhouse that she painted in, and she used to let him in and teach him how to paint. And that was his outlet. So we got her, and we put a heavy vest on her and a helmet, and she's 100 pounds, and we kind of marched her down the driveway, and as soon as he saw her, it kind of broke the ice, and he took a little while, but he finally gave up the gun and surrendered. So you got to be able to be flexible in these things,
Yep. All right. Well, great stuff. Great stories. So, anything you want to say about your career? Because then we're going to bring up two things that you're doing. Well, actually, one, and still in the capacity of the chief with your genealogy. So start talking about that, and then we'll talk about the NYPD. Let's wrap. Let's try. We're at 9:20. This is probably the longest Ten-Four Tavern we've ever had. It's going to go 2 hours and 30 minutes. So let's try to wrap up in 10 minutes. So give us a couple of minutes on the genealogy stuff that you're doing, because I know you and I talked as friends on the Ancestry, tracking our Irish roots. And I just got back from Ireland a couple of years ago and went to Epic to track my Irish roots, which was very disappointing, by the way, because I couldn't go back as far as I wanted to, but because the records were burned in some church or whatever. But yeah, so give us the genealogy, and then the case you helped solve on genetic genealogy, and then we'll do the NYPD map of all line of duty deaths.
So I started with the genealogy thing about 25 years ago. It has evolved a lot over the years. I was told by my mother's side of the family we were related to Commodore Hull, Isaac Hull. He was the commanding officer of the USS Constitution, and I wanted to confirm that, which I could confirm that we are related, but we were not descendants of his. He never had any children, or at least he never got married, and no children on paper, and I could not do a DNA ladder up there. But he was like a grand nephew of the Hulls that came over in the 1620s, not long after the Pilgrims. And so, and the other side of the family, another side of the family said we were related to Governor Clinton of New York State from years ago. That I can debunk. I'm not related to them. Although I think my great grandfather and him had a business together in Lower Manhattan, a mercantile trading company, because their kids are named after each other. So I can kind of believe that they were friends, maybe godparents, who knows? But it just built into a whole family tree thing. My mother's side of the family, we had no idea where their Irish roots were. My father's side of the family kept saying we were from Dublin, but I just, knowing Irish history, I kind of felt like they could not have been from Dublin originally. They probably went there during the famine or to escape some sort of other, tragedy in Ireland, and that they wanted to have security, job security, and live a better lifestyle in Dublin. Well, it turns out they were actually from Dublin from 2 centuries ago, and my 6-time great-grandparents owned property that's actually now part of Dublin Airport, part of one of the runways in Dublin Airport. They were actually neighbors with James Joyce's family. So that was interesting. And a whole bunch of different twists and turns in the genealogy world. I'm actually 4th cousins with Laura Prepon from Orange is the New Black. And I think she was on the 70s show.
70s show.
That's
I
right.
don't know the Orange is the New Black, but I know the 70s show.
That's right. And that turned into me working more with my, Ancestry gives you a lot of tools now. And the DNA has gotten much more sophisticated. And I'm able to confirm a lot of the research that I did through DNA now, with 5th and 6th cousins, where we share just a trace amount of DNA, but it confirms that we go up that line, and it's just been passed down for 150 years. It's crazy. And you guys have been in investigations a long time. You know how DNA works. It solves cases. So I was at a chief's meeting one day, and the Horry County coroner was there, and the deputy coroner, and I just said, "Hey, do you have any cases that you have kind of sitting there cold that might be solved through genetic genealogy?" And she said she handed me this case, and I kind of worked on it with a couple other genealogists. One of the genealogists is from out in the West Coast in Arizona, Nevada, and then another one was from Philadelphia. This one in Philadelphia was actually related to the John Doe. That's how I found her. She's a second cousin, and she had been working on her tree for a long time and didn't know where this guy fit in. And we worked on it for like a year and a half, almost 2 years. One day I get a call from it had gone cold. We kind of let it sit for a while. And I got a call from the one in Philadelphia. And she said, "Hey, I just got a new match on Ancestry, familial match. And she matches John Doe and she matches me." And we worked on it a bit, and she got in touch with her. And so here's where the police work, the previous detective work. It wasn't so much with the DNA match. We kind of figured out that they would definitely be related, but convincing her to transfer her DNA from Ancestry, which law enforcement cannot access or use for their investigations, they have to move their DNA over to GEDmatch. And GEDmatch is when you sign up for GEDmatch, you have to physically click on it. Yes, I will allow law enforcement to access my DNA and make a comparison, which took a few weeks. It just amazes me how people are this distrustful of law enforcement. And it was a lot of cajoling and a lot of encouragement. And finally she did it, and they came back as a half-sister. All the kids in her family were in products of foster care. The mother was not a stable mother. And so she, when we figured out who the mother was, we had the North Carolina Bureau of Investigation go up and do a DNA sample and confirmed the mother-son relationship. And this kid that drowned in 2016 in a pool in Myrtle Beach, turned out we gave him a name. His name was Malquan Hawkins, and the family was who they didn't even know who he was, the siblings, but they were happy to know that they had a sibling who is now, they took control of the custody of the remains, and they were going to give him a proper burial and give him a proper name. And he's no longer sitting in a cold morgue. So it was a good feeling.
Awesome. Well, that's police work right there. I think the two detectives and again, Pete, no disrespect to the deputy assistant director of the ATF, but I know you're a detective at heart. And
yeah,
Jimmy,
because once you get that taste of that detective work, I mean, here I am, a chief of police. I didn't have to do this stuff, but I just had that urge. I had that feeling to go back and just kind of dig deeper and be able to do an investigation again. It felt really good.
Yeah, putting puzzle together, man. That's what it's all
Yeah.
about.
Yep.
It's the fun part.
And Jimmy was volunteered with the Myrtle Beach Police Department on their cold case unit as a volunteer too.
Oh, Jimmy, I did not know that, buddy.
Yep.
All right. So I think we're going to talk to Jimmy about coming on maybe in the spring. So we'll do that. But when Mike was coming on, I reached out and I asked Jimmy if he wanted to do a pop-in because it is a tavern and you never know who's going to pop in a gin mill. So with that, but Jimmy certainly has an illustrious career.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jimmy, I tell you, you're the second volunteer cold case guy we've had on. We had Jeff Lewis from Miami Beach, or rather, City of Miami Police Department that came on for an episode. He's doing the same thing, man. So it's good to see people using the skills they acquired over their long, hard-earned careers to help continue to do the right thing in their retirement as a volunteer. So God bless you for doing that, brother.
It keeps you sharp, and it's one of those things. You start poking around a bit, and it's like you want to do so much more. And, unfortunately, you're tied into their guidelines, and you can't. And it's like that's where it gets frustrating. You want to run around and start doing interviews, and the way it's set up in Myrtle Beach, we don't do that. We just kind of review, make suggestions, and pass along to the case detective.
Yeah, but you know what it is? It's indicia of something I said a long time ago. First off, working cops always recognize another working cop, no matter where they're from. You can spot the posers a mile away. But the other thing is, once you've done this job and really done this job, you can't get it out of your blood. I hate to say this because it kind of sucks, but it defines us. So if you can take that energy and do something positively with it, help others after retirement, God bless you, man, because you're still serving. And there's nothing more important than serving something bigger than yourself.
Yep.
And shies always help.
Yeah.
Okay. Last thing we're going to do, and Mike, I know there's so many photos that you shared with us that we could have gone on, but I think we really covered a lot. If there's any photo you want me to bring up let me know now. But I'm going to bring up what I think is really important is the fact, tell us about why you took it upon yourself to map every line of duty death and every New York City police officer who was killed in the military all across the world. Look at this craziness. So tell us about what this project was for you.
So I was actually thinking about doing, those square calendars that you just rip the days off every day. And I was going to do one where it listed the NYPD officer that was killed on that date in history. There were too many. There was just too many to fit on one page on a lot of dates. There was days there were none, thank goodness. But when I started digging into the research, I just realized how overwhelming this was, and I realized that there was no way for. There are great websites like Officers Down Memorial Page, and there was another one called NYPD Angels, and I think the job does not have a real good memorial page, but I did use that as part of my research, and it did not give you descriptions of where it happened and how many times I was at Canal Street or how many times was I on Delancey Street, and not realize that, hey, there was a cop that was killed in that location. It might have been 100 years ago, but I know that a lot of places have streets named after deceased officers and that type of thing, but it's it's just for public awareness. When Mike Julian was the commissioner of training, he reached out to me and he wanted to put this map on TVs in the hallway and highlight things and try to figure out awareness for cops in the academy to be like, hey, you need to be aware because so-and-so got killed because he went to a burglary and he was not prepared, or he got ambushed to someplace. You need to be aware. So if you click on each one of those items, it brings up a brief synopsis of the officer, who it was. Oh, there you go. Who it was, and it'll give me a link to either a newspaper article or some other thing. So, how many people know that the guy in the 71st Detective Squad was killed at that location? On Hedrick Street. What was the 7-1 Precinct Detective Squad doing in the 6-3? Investigating. What was turned out to be his last call. A lot of people were killed in car accidents or horse accidents. There was a lot of guys who were killed, and back before there were cars. So when motorcycles first were introduced to the department, there was a ton of guys that were getting killed because they weren't getting the proper training to ride motorcycles. And if you click on, you go to the left and you can see you got transit and housing, and I've expanded it to federal and housing, Port Authority, corrections. These guys, they have, there's so many different agencies that are not recognized, probably within themselves, but, we just think NYPD.
Right.
So
I want to do a couple. Let me acknowledge a couple things. I know we're running late, but it's just so important. So,
yeah, that's overwhelming. It's hard, and I can't keep up on the amount of guys that are being, either listed as 9/11 deaths or, they haven't been confirmed as 9/11 deaths. So that's been a really difficult challenge for me. All the other incidences are documented in newspaper articles or department files and that type of thing. But that look at that, Tommy. That's just hundreds and hundreds of guys.
Yeah. So for those of you who are listening and not watching, I have up on the screen all of the line of duty deaths that have been attributed to 9/11 and the aftermaths. The cancer related, it is just a big blob, and I can zoom in and click on any one of these dots and I'll grab one, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'll bet you I click on one and I know who it is. Patricia Ann Senkowitz. I do not, but I did this today and I was blown away in doing the research today that like 3 out of every 4, I was like, I know them. And it's really sad. And we're at hundreds, if not over 1,000 of people. John Walker, I know the name, Weintraub. I mean, it's just crazy. And so, Mike, I can't even imagine Mike Hansen from Emergency Services, Hanlon. I know his brother.
Teddy, I worked with District 3, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So crazy, this number. And then what I was also fascinated by was like, because of going back before the expansion into the outer boroughs, I was like, wait a second, Manhattan was that much more? And like, if you just think of the early part of the century, like Manhattan was wild. But I'm going to expand all the way out, all across the world. And you see these brown, you want to explain these brown?
Well, so yeah, first you have that blue marker in Italy where Petrosino.
Yeah. So Petrosino. So let me do Italy first. Go ahead. And then here's a line of duty NYPD cop.
Taking down the mob.
That's right.
Yep.
The Black Hand. But those brown markers was like a late entry into the map when I started. I got into an annual report that the department did after World War I, and I was like blown away by the amount of guys that were killed during World War I. You know, and these guys didn't get drafted; they volunteered, a lot of them. You know, so just a different generation. World War II, same thing, and you know, Vietnam only had one guy. You know, I don't know if he volunteered. I don't think he was drafted because cops were exempt for the draft. But you know, we got guys like Lem, who was killed in Iraq, or you know.
So Joe Lem. No, he was killed in Afghanistan. Iraq was McNaughton.
Yeah, James McNaughton. He was the first. He was the first NYPD.
Yeah.
You know, in after 9/11. Yeah. So.
And then Lem was this one.
He both worked with his parents. You know, well, his mother, his stepmother, and his father. You know.
Yeah.
Both transit guys, cops.
So Mike, again, we could spend hours on this map alone, but thank you for doing this map and the tribute to all of the line of duty deaths and members of the New York City Police Departments and the other police departments, housing and transit and MTA and everything that had anything to do with New York City, for all of their deaths all across the country. So thanks for that. We could spend a lot of time on this, so I don't want to diminish this effort. But it's truly a tribute to the kind of policeman that you are, for doing that. So thank you for that. We are by far the longest podcast.
Sorry.
Episode 35. It's all worth it. I had a pee once. Pete had a pee once, I think.
Tommy, I thought you were going to kick out of that.
I love the history stuff. So go ahead.
Brooklyn Police Department, 5th Precinct. It's their photo roster. The 5th Precinct was on Bedford, and I believe it was North First Street. It just says North Street, but when I looked it up, I believe it was Bedford Avenue and North First Street, and 1891. I just love this old stuff, the history of the department, and you know, for the Brooklyn Police Department, a lot of people don't realize that there was a Brooklyn Police Department. You know. Yep.
So 2 medals, and then we're going to do the fire, and then we're getting out of here. So give me 1 minute here, 1 minute on the fire, and your uncle. We have to do as a tribute. So go ahead.
So I just got into collecting NYPD lapel pins after 9/11 and 9/11 related lapel pins. And it kind of, when I saw it was on eBay, and it just kind of morphed and grew, and I just started collecting photos. I have hundreds and hundreds of photos from 19th century photos, 20th century photos. I have documents of the old rattle watch from the late 1800s or mid 1800s, and it's just being a history buff and a NYPD buff, it all just kind of merged together. These are two of my more rare pieces of my collection. The left one was given to Chief Maximilian Schmidberger in 1917. Now, Max Schmidberger, his history of the NYPD goes back to the 1870s, and he was a chief of department towards the end of his career, but he was vilified during the current commission because he ratted out a bunch of all the corruption in the department, and they sent him out to Staten Island in the 80s.
Scholarship to Staten Island.
As a captain, when there was no bridge and a steam ferry, and he wound up working his way back up through Teddy Roosevelt because Teddy Roosevelt was a reformer and kind of resurrected his career. Well, that medal was given by the Honor Legion because he was one of the founding members and very instrumental in founding the Honor Legion in 1912. 1917, that medal was given to him for his 43rd anniversary with the police department. He died about 6 months later. So I wound up buying that on eBay, kind of refurbishing it. A lot of the stones were missing, but it just to think that I was holding something that was given to this bigger than life guy in history is amazing to me. The other medal that was shown was the Order of Merit, which was created by Commissioner Enright in the 1920s, and that one was issued to Inspector Falcone, and there's only like 20 of them in existence, 25 of them in existence, and very, very hard to find. And it's just it's a Tiffany medal. I'm sorry, a DJ's a Cluss medal, and it's just a work of art to me. You look at the colors and the enamel and how well it was kept. On the back of it is inscribed it was issued to him in 1905. Well, I think it was 1905. And, it's just great history. I mean, we could do a whole story on that, whole podcast on that too,
I love the blue, white, and green. It's such a beautiful, I love the colors. I love the police flag for sure. And then last thing we're going to do, sorry, buddy, you might have to come back one day, but maybe you interfere and you drop in on Jimmy's podcast.
I'd be more than happy to have Michael aboard.
On the top right of this photo is my uncle. He's married to my father's sister, Wally Hines. He was a good friend of mine, not just my uncle, but a super, super guy from Rockaway. And just to think that, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 guys from one police department of one firehouse could get killed in one day, and then you multiply that by how many? If we get 343 firemen that were killed that day. My father, my uncle, my best friend, my brother-in-law, they're all firemen. So I'm the black sheep of the family, and I just want to make a tribute to him too.
Well, they all needed a hero, Mike. Come on, you know how.
That's right.
Well, God bless them. We miss them, and it was a rough day and a rough 20-something years after that. It's never stopped. It's never forgotten. And Pete, I know you and I talk every day. Never forget, and it seems like too many people have forgotten. So, Pete, I'm going to go to you. Wrap up tonight, and then we'll go to Jimmy, and then Mike. It's his show, so we'll let him finish it up.
No, man, a lot of great stories, Mike. I appreciate what you did, what you're doing. A life of service, and not just while you're wearing the uniform, doing the job, doing all these other things you did on the side. So God bless you, man. Good to meet you. I know you and I never crossed paths in person. It's the first time we speak. So thanks for coming on. And it's been great, man. Real learning experience. And that's some pretty cool stuff that you're doing with the old medals and whatnot. Looking at the history of the NYPD. Yeah. Excellent stuff. So thanks for coming, man.
Thank you.
Hopefully one day raising a glass with you in person someday. Me, you, and Tommy. And
come on down to South Carolina.
Yeah.
I have a 12-year-old son. My wife and I, we talk about it all the time. Mike, I'm really trying to figure it out. I was on Zillow the other day looking at Pawleys Island real estate. I think your estimates were right. I was like, yeah, that's not going to work, but maybe we'll just rent. But whatever.
Come a little further north, up to Merle's Inlet.
All right. Oh, Merle's. Okay, we'll do that, Jimmy. So, Jimmy, any final thoughts? You popped in. You want to break his balls? Anything you want to do?
I appreciate being invited in. I mean, I've known Mike since I came on a job, and as a young cop, it was one of the guys, even though he was not much older than me, he was a little older than me, he was a guy you looked up to and you learned from. And from that point on, I've continued to learn from Mike, whether it was investigative stuff, police history, band stuff. I mean, I reached out to Mike recently when I found out my son's shield number, and the first person I reached out to, because it's a 3-digit one, was Mike. And Mike right away got me information on it. So it's an honor to call Mike a friend.
Yeah.
So little history. When I was in hate crimes, we had the domestic violence unit on the same floor as us, and there was a female officer that worked down the hall named Karen Mulcahy, and she used to pop in, we'd get a coffee, and she was friends with some of the detectives in the squad. Well, fast forward years later, and Jimmy shows up one St. Patrick's Day with this woman named Karen, and he had met this Karen Mulcahy, and they wound up getting married. So I knew both Jimmy and Karen when they were individuals. Now they're the family normal. So I'm very proud to call both of them friends.
Yep. Okay, everybody. So thanks. We're going to wrap it up tonight. We're way over the 2-hour.
Tommy, one more call out. I know I promised Mike Osgood. I don't know
Chief.
Great job. He was my CO in hate crimes. Yes. Big dog, I miss you. I loved working with you. Stay well.
I believe he's made some testimony too that was pretty interesting. And for those of you who are paying attention, Chief Osgood, thank you for what you've said and done. So appreciate that. Okay, everybody, house cleaning. Guys, for the team that's on here, if you want to stay on into the green room afterwards, we could just rehash for 5 more minutes if your bladders can hold it. But I have some house cleaning for the podcast tomorrow at in the morning, 8:05. The Finest Unfiltered is going to be joined by Brandon Castro, who's running for State Assembly District 30. But I highly doubt that John, Eric, and Marlon can avoid the snowballs. And then at 5:05, the snowball effect for sure, with the executive perspective from a chief and an inspector, Ron Layson and Chief Rob Lukash. They will try to get into what's going on and the leadership that was absent when those guys were getting pelted with snowballs, and where was their help. And those were 2 big dudes that I saw on the videos, and there was no response. Nobody, but maybe there's another side of the story. So Ron and Rob will get into that at 5:05 Wednesday night. So 8:05 tomorrow morning, Wednesday, is the Finest Unfiltered with John, Eric, and Marlon, and State Assembly, Brandon Castro, who's running for District 30 in Queens, and then Rob and Ron tomorrow night at 5:05. And then Pete, you got your book, The Deadly Path. Anyone who wants to know about Fast and Furious, read Pete's book. So with that, everybody, thank you. Appreciate it. I know we went long. I enjoyed every minute of it, Mike. So thanks for coming on. And see everybody. Please stay safe. Pete, go ahead. You got something to say.
Oh, man. And thanks, Jimmy, for popping in, too, man.
I appreciate it.
You're a new person at the tavern, man.
It was an honor.
Thanks, guys.
All right, everybody. Please stay safe. God bless.